Greetings. This is TK aka Travis Mages, here with LVX777. We're going to continue with our book study of Samkhya Darshan. This can be seen as one of the main books that we were leading up to all year long with this book study program. So the thing about Samkhya Darshan is that Samkhya Darshan represents the origin of where this science originates from. Samkhya can be seen as one of the oldest structures of understanding reality, understanding the nature of the soul and its relationship with matter. So we're really getting into the advanced aspects of spirituality right now. And the thing is, the more advanced that we get with spirituality, the more that we understand that it gets, in a way, simpler. The components get simpler. So even though we're dealing with the advanced level, understand that simplicity is key here, because the more intricate a system gets, it has to rely on a foundation of simplicity. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. So when I keep saying simplicity, what I'm talking about is the two aspects of reality, which is consciousness and matter. So Samkhya is really going to discuss and flesh out the difference between matter and the soul. There's one soul. There's one matter. This is why life in reality is referred to as an illusion, because we all think that we have these individual millions and billions of lives. But in truth, everything is reduced down to one consciousness and one matter. So we're going to learn a little bit about that today. Like I said, at an expert level, at an advanced level. So peace and greetings to the fam. Welcome, welcome. Tonight we're going to get into some really exciting and important stuff. So I encourage you to take notes. If you got this book, you should have it by now. If you got it, get your highlighter out, because there's going to be a lot of stuff to highlight. This chapter, these 3 chapters are highly highlightable. The whole book is really, but you're going to see for yourself as we go through it. So peace to everybody. Peace to Al Dickey. Peace to Kev SS God. Peace. Golden Apple Tea. Good to see you once again. Tina Hewley. Good evening. Good evening. Glad that you're here. Framestar Films. My brother from across the pond. Peace and greetings. Macarius 26. Peace. Peace. Alicia M. Peace. Good to see you. Society Ejects. Welcome, welcome, my brother. First one in. All right. Okay, so we're going to get to that. But first, I'm going to share something like really exciting. All right. Check this out. So, as you know, I've been working on my book. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, what I get accomplished first is probably going to be the only printing of it, because I'm just going to let everything out. But later on, I'm probably going to break it up into maybe 2 or 3 books with more fleshed out concepts, because I've been bouncing back and forth between this low magic book dealing with the Goetia and this high magic book dealing with the soul. And it's like I can't decide on which one to spend all my time on. So I'm just going to write, right? I'm just going to put it all together. Later on, though, it will be separated. But I highly encourage you to get the first version of this, because I'm probably not going to be printing it after I separate it again. But anyways, here's another reason. So I started doing some digging in some of my old papers and my old books, and I found this. Okay. So here I've got everything that I'm using in my research, right? I found another notebook here that was full of my work with the Shemha Mepharash, right? So this notebook is full of all my work with the angels. Can you imagine what this blank notebook is all about? Well, I'll give you a hint. For me working with the Goetia, I pretty much took notes of a lot of my later rituals when things started getting really advanced. And I tapped into something that was actually deeper than the Goetia. And I began to channel that entity, taking notes. It gave me its rituals, gave me everything. And it gave me these sigils, it gave me these names of these different spirits that are actually within the legions of a specific entity. So this was a whole experience, a whole freaking story. Jeez Louise, I almost lost my mind during this time period because it was getting pretty intense and it was kind of difficult to tell between what was real and what was not. I so forgot about this, but I found it just in time. And this literally has everything that I need to go ahead and get this book completed. And this was written in 2017. Yet, as I'm studying more about Samkhya and the advanced philosophy, I'm seeing that I was on the right track even back then. Look, Christmas 2018, right? So this is between 2017 and 2018. And yeah, as you can see, I'm just flipping these pages just to show that there's so much here. So much here. Yeah, I so forgot about this, but here it is. I'm super excited because this was going to be my Goetia book back in the day. So be looking forward to that because you won't be needing all these stacks of books once you read what I've got in store for you. That is for sure. But this video is not about the Goetia. Let's go ahead and get to Samkhya. By the way, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button. You know why? Because YouTube promotes and arranges videos based on engagement. So you hitting the like button and commenting, that counts as engagement, which means that YouTube will help to promote my stuff. So I hope that you guys are excited about what's coming because I'm fucking excited. This is amazing. When I tell you I completely forgot about this, man, I completely forgot about this. I literally was taking step-by-step notes when I was working with Andros. I was going to write a book that was called The Book of Andros, The Grimoire of Andros, and it was going to be just about him and his legions. Because when you begin to work with these spirits, when you go deeper into their legions, you start going up the tree. So the Goetic spirits, their area is roughly in the sphere of Had. Now, this is from in my books. You'll get more info on this later. But when you start working with their legions, those Goetic spirits, the legions are located in Netzach. So if you continue to go up the tree, you start finding that there's actually a trail that leads back to source. Now, what I found myself doing was getting back into the Qliphoth. And that's why things started to get a little bit freaky because I was tapping into unbalanced force. And yeah, I'm trying to keep this as a surprise, but there was something there that isn't listed in any of these books. I had to find it out the hard way. So that is coming. Get ready. I'm excited about it. All right, so let's get down to this. What's up, Phil? Peace, peace. So yeah, there's even portions in this notebook that says do not publish ever because it's so dangerous. And I'm gonna really do some meditating about that because really some of that stuff you can only cause harm. So I'm not so sure if I want to print that, but we'll see. We will see. We will see for sure. Okay, let's get started. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show you. I know, I'm taking a while, but like I said, I just got excited about this. I haven't seen you guys in like a week, so bear with me. Bear with me. Yeah, I had no idea that I was doing path working. Just from working. Look at, and there's different rituals that I completely forgot about. This is crazy. All these are rituals that I did myself. I was given to by these spirits, and I tested them. And I remember why my manager was so freaking scared. Oh my god. Give me just a second. Well, anyways, there is a portion in this book where it specifically said, do not publish. And I guess I'm not able to find it because I'm not even supposed to show it. Jeez Louise. This is literally enough to be its own book right here. So yeah, from my work with Andros and his legions, this book must not be printed, for it is too terrible. The house of misery, a terrible spell, a most awful curse. That was the actual spell that was given to me that really caused a lot of damage, I'll say. So maybe I shouldn't publish it. At least not that part. But let's get to Samkhya Darshan, because that's what we're here for. Alright, so let's get started. We're working on chapters 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Like I said, I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are too. It will definitely manifest here soon enough. So let's switch this camera around. And get started. Goodness. All right. So, chapter 3 is about Prakriti, chapter 4 is about the 3 gunas, and chapter 5 is about Purusha. So we're going to get all the context we need for the 2 extremes and what exists in between. Prakriti we know as nature, Purusha we know as the soul, and the 3 gunas being the substance of Prakriti. So that starts on page 21. All right. Okay, chapter 3. Prakriti. In regard to Prakriti and the qualities of Prakriti, the first point to consider is that the entire creation is a series of effects. If you look at creation as a series of effects, then you will wonder what is the cause of these myriads of forms and myriads of effects. These effects are both gross and subtle. Gross means something that can be perceived with the senses, like trees, mountains, stones, fruits, and flowers. A subtle manifestation is something that you cannot perceive externally through the senses, but which exists or subsists in the mind, such as thoughts, desires, intellect, and self-identity. So that's a good one right there also. All throughout all of these books, you're going to see reference to the gross and to the subtle. That's a good definition. So gross means it's something that can be perceived with the senses. Trees, mountains, stones, fruits, and flowers. Subtle, a subtle manifestation means something that cannot be perceived externally by the senses, but it does exist or subsists in the mind. Thoughts, desires, intellect, and self-identity. There have been wide-ranging discussions to discover the original or primary cause, the mula pradhana, to explain the manifestation of so many different effects. There are 2 schools of thought in Samkhya. One school says that Purusha is the cause, and the other says that Purusha cannot be the cause because Purusha is free from cause and effect. Purusha is not the cause of any gross or subtle object. nor is Purusha an effect. Purusha is pure, static consciousness, and therefore something else must be the primary cause, the Mula Pradhana. So understand that also. According to Samkhya, everything that we observe in life is an effect, right? So when we're searching for the cause, it's important to understand that the cause is not going to be found in Purusha. The cause is not going to be found in the soul. The cause of matter and the cause of what's happening in the external world, the cause is not going to be found in the soul. The soul has nothing to do with anything. It's just there. All cause and all effect belongs to Prakriti. All cause and all effect belongs to Prakriti. So anything that has a beginning, middle, or an end belongs to Prakriti. Please understand that. That's a super important point. Super important point. Greetings, Sunshine Chick. Right. Peace, Sly. So again, Purusha is not the cause of any gross or subtle object. What was gross? Gross is anything that can be detected by the five senses. Subtle was a manifestation that cannot be perceived by the five senses, but it exists in the mind. None of that is due to Purusha. Purusha is pure absolute knowledge. Gyan. In that pure, unadulterated state of being, where only total knowledge exists, there is no primary cause or primary effect. The cause and effect both dissolve in knowledge. Therefore, Purusha cannot be the primary cause. Purusha is not an effect in sense that it is neither gross nor subtle. It exists in the form of akasha, space, or ether, right? It is vast and infinite. By the way, all of this should sound familiar, especially if you were present for the Sunday video that I did 2 weeks ago, just talking about the overview of Samkhya, right? Matter, we know, comes in 5 states, and we describe it according to the elements. We can say earth, water, fire, air, and then at the 5th level, ether or akasha, right? But it's at that 5th level, and I said this before, it's at that highest level that both cause and effect absorb into itself. It absorbs into itself. So we're going to get more into that in this chapter. But please understand that it's very important to be able to distinguish what's going on here. That way you can see the picture clearly. That's the whole point of an advanced study, so that you can clear out any confusion and see clearly. But one more time, the soul is not the cause or the effect of nature. All right. What does he say here? It says Purusha is not a cause, and Purusha is not an effect in the sense that it is neither gross nor subtle. So the soul is not gross or subtle. The soul is not going to be detected by the 5 senses, and it's not going to be detected by the mind. It's beyond both of those. He says here, it exists in the form of akasha, space, or ether. It is vast and infinite, like the boundless space. You cannot contain space in any way, form, or place, because limitation is not the nature of absolute space. Therefore, something else has to be the primary cause of this entire manifestation, of this entire manifest creation. Naturally natured, peace, welcome. Atomic theories of creation. Different philosophical systems have gone through a process of speculation, analysis, and observation in relation to this question. Buddhism, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and Mimamsa have said that the main cause of creation is the subtle substance known as paramanu, the atomic structure, which gives rise to the manifestation of earth, water, fire, and air as combinations of those ultimate atoms, right? Just said that. There are atoms and molecular structures in these 4 elements, and therefore it was argued many centuries ago that the atom is the prime cause of manifestation. However, Vedanta and Mahayana, a later school of Buddhism, maintained that the primary cause of creation is consciousness, chetana, because consciousness controls both the gross and subtle molecular and atomic structures, right? Samkhya's theory of manifestation. Samkhya's theory of manifestation is also sometimes called the theory of creation or the theory of evolution. According to Samkhya, the process of creation or manifestation has two forms, gross and subtle. Remember what we said about gross and subtle. Gross means it can be detected by the five senses. Subtle means that it exists, but it cannot be detected by the five senses. It's subjective, right? Subjective, objective. So according to Samkhya, the process of creation or manifestation has two forms, objective and subjective, gross and subtle. The atomic theory can definitely be accepted for the existence of the gross manifestation, which is perceivable through the senses. However, you cannot explain subtle manifestations by the atomic theory. These must have another cause. You can say that consciousness is the primary cause for the manifestation of subtle states, such as different states of mind. But consciousness cannot create the molecular, atomic, or subatomic particles, such as neutrons, protons, and electrons, by thought alone. Therefore, in order to understand evolution, Samkhya established this theory of manifestation. Samkhya brings in Prakriti as the primary cause of creation, and Prakriti is defined as both insentient, which means Jada, or Jada, which means insentient, and subtle, which is Sukshma. So Prakriti is insentient. It does not have a mind, and it's also subtle. Samkhya can explain both gross manifestations, such as objects or the body, and subtle manifestations, such as the ego or thought, because of these attributes of Prakriti. By citing the concept of Prakriti as the primary cause, it is possible to explain how things in general, and body and mind in particular, came into being. This basic concept of Samkhya enables the theory of manifestation to be useful in a person's search for self-understanding. Attributes of Prakriti. So Prakriti was proposed as the primary cause, or pradhana, but in order to be the source and controller of both cause and effect, Prakriti must have certain special attributes. So in order to be the source and controller of both cause and effect, Prakriti must have certain special attributes. Prakriti itself is not a cause like other causes. From the primary cause, all causes come into being. All the causes and effects are inherent in the primary cause. So all the manifest objects and experiences are dependent on Prakriti. But Prakriti itself is causeless and free. I'll read that again. All the causes and effects are inherent in the primary cause. So at some level, there's a primary cause that is the seed of all other causes and all other effects, right? So all the manifest objects and experiences are dependent on Prakriti, but Prakriti itself is causeless and free. Prakriti is not a cause in the usual sense. It is the mother of causes, containing all causes and their effects. Now, if any of you know anything about the tree of life, what sphere does that sound like being described there? Prakriti is not a cause in the usual sense. It is the mother of causes, containing all causes and their effects. Peace, Nuru. Yes, that sounds a whole lot like the mother Bina. This is the cause of causes. This sphere is described as having not exactly the form, but the seed of form, the first instance of form, the very beginnings of form, the cause of all causes. Bina, absolutely. Good job, good job. However, if the theory of potent cause is applied here, there would have to be an equally potent effect, and there is no potent effect equal to Prakriti. So if the theory of potent cause is applied here, there would have to be an equally potent effect, and there is no potent effect equal to Prakriti. So Prakriti is not a cause in itself. There are different ways of looking at potency. For example, the potency of growth in a seed will lie dormant until the right environment is provided for it, but then it will grow into a plant according to its nature. Here, potent cause has an equally potent effect. But Prakriti is so potent that it does not have an equally potent effect, either qualitatively or quantitatively. Prakriti is not a cause in itself. So the potency inside of a seed is going to lie dormant until it reaches the right environment provided for it. Then it will grow into a plant according to its nature. Here, the potent cause has an equally potent effect. But Prakriti is so potent that it does not have an equally potent effect, either qualitatively or quantitatively, in quality or in quantity. So in a way, what this is saying is that Prakriti is so potent as a cause that she's so powerful as a cause, she's eternally in that state, right? So there is a level and a realm and a state of Prakriti or nature that is eternally unmanifest. You get what I'm saying here? There's two levels of Prakriti largely. There's manifest Prakriti, which is the realm that we find our experience within. And then there's unmanifest Prakriti, where she's eternally in her perfect state. And check it out. When we talk about Bina, she's also seen as a virgin, right? A mother giving birth to endless life, but at the same time a virgin. How can that be possible? Well, right, this is how they describe Bina, right? As being the sacred whore, as being the mother, but also a virgin. What that means is that there's an aspect of her that has expressed all of the causes. There's also an aspect of her that is purely potential. Now, this might be another reason why we have the relationship between Bina and Malkuth. Between Bina and Malkuth, they're both seen as two sides of the same goddess, two types of the same thing, right? Society Eject says Zafkiel, the superior mother, right? Please get this. Please get this. Please understand this. If you're new to this, maybe it won't make much sense, but those of you who have been studying with me, that's a major key there. And it shows just how tightly Samkhya and Kabbalah fit together. Nobody's talking about this, probably because they don't know. But then again, also because certain people who have this information, have no reason to talk about it. Let's keep going. Framestar Film says, Mary, a virgin, yet gave birth to light as in Jesus. Oh my. Oh my. In order to understand the attributes of Prakriti as the primal cause, Samkhya gives the names, aspects, and qualities of Prakriti as follows. So here we have a list. Get ready. So let's describe Prakriti, and let's see how Samkhya has enumerated her aspects and her qualities. Check it out. The word Prakriti is derived from two roots, pra plus kriti. Kriti denotes kriya, the root of action. Right? And pra is a prefix signifying intensity. just like the path of pravriti, right? Pra meaning being intensely enmeshed in the vrittis, pravriti. RMZO28 says, "Hey Trav, I'm 18 and only 2 months into this occult world. Would you say I'm wasting my time even watching this? Should I go to older videos? Thanks." No, I'd say you're in the right place, because if you listen to this information and you pull something out of it, it's gonna make all the other stuff make more sense. This is actually the root of pretty much anything I've ever studied in the occult. So if you start here at the root, like I said, the other stuff that you're going to get into will only make more sense. So yeah, the word prakriti is derived from two roots, pra plus kriti. Kriti denotes kriya, the root of action. Pra is prefix signifying intensity. Prakriti has the potency of action and is the basis of all manifestation, yet it is uncaused in itself. Prakriti is pradhana, the main cause. All the effects of manifestation are dependent on Prakriti, yet Prakriti is independent of all the effects. You gotta ask, how can this be? It can only be if Prakriti exists in multiple states, right? I'm telling you, there's a state of Prakriti that is manifest, but there's also a state of Prakriti that is in the blueprint zone, right? In a prototype zone, in an unmanifest dimension. The same way that we've got Bina and Malkuth. The same way that Bina exists separate from the tree, so to speak, in the upper triad, separated by Doth, yet also in Malkuth, the expressed realm, the prototype, the blueprint, the unexpressed, and the expressed. But it's one and the same. Notice, that's the last sphere before the fall, before we get down to the abyss. So in a way, once all this is resolved back up, it will return to the womb. From the womb to the tomb. Same place. So again, all the effects, like Prakriti is the main cause. All the effects of manifestation are dependent on Prakriti. Yet Prakriti is independent of all the effects. Prakriti is known as Brahma. Oh, that's new. Prakriti is known as Brahma, being a state that evolves and is responsible for evolution. Prakriti is equated with Brahma because it evolves from Jada, an insentient state, into different forms or objects, which further its progress towards realizing the existence of Purusha. Prakriti is known as Brahma because it evolves in nature, and this name validates the concept of Prakriti as a force of manifestation, growth, and evolution. That's something new to think about right there. Prakriti and Purusha have been deified, okay? But let's not think of them as a giant spaceman and a giant space woman. They represent aspects of ourselves that we cannot comprehend. So we use them as rungs on a ladder that we can use to climb up into the understanding. So it's easy to call Prakriti Mother Nature. It's easy to call Prakriti the divine feminine. It's easy to call Prakriti matter. But understand that Prakriti is actually something more than what we know with our five senses. Right? He talked about gross and subtle. The gross understanding of Prakriti is just look around, right? Not only the stuff that you can see, feel, hear, taste, and touch and smell, but also the very faculty of sight and hearing and tasting, smelling. Both of those are Prakriti. And then there's even a more subtle aspect, which is your memories, your personality, right? All these different things about you, that also belongs to Prakriti. And then there's another aspect of reality that is not even here, yet it is what exists within Prakriti. And she, in a way, is seeking to realize that within herself. And we only use he and she just as a separation. It's not actually a giant spaceman and space woman, but these are different ways that reality expresses itself. Because we're also talking about the dichotomy of Shiva and Shakti. Sly says, funny you say this knowledge is the root, because I see it as the kether of spiritual food. Yet, as you've taught, every kether is another tree's malkuth. Right. Society Eject says, so would that be the bottom of Yasad? Are you talking about Bina? Oh boy. Gerald Sombright, peace, greetings. So yeah, he just equates Prakriti with Brahma here. I'll read that one because that's important too. Prakriti is known as Brahma, being a state that evolves and is responsible for evolution. Prakriti is equated with Brahma because it evolves from Jada, which means being insentient, an insentient state, it evolves from Jada into different forms or objects, which further its progress towards realizing the existence of Purusha. So this is literally matter evolving and realizing itself. So even Prakriti is going through enlightenment, just like we are. As a matter of fact, us going through enlightenment is Prakriti going through enlightenment through her bits and pieces, which are us and everything here. Prakriti is known as Brahma because it evolves in nature, and this name validates the concept of Prakriti as a force of manifestation, growth, and evolution. Oh, nice. Al-Diki says, okay, guys, the Quran says the number 19 is the most important number in Islam, and it's for those who reflect. And I just thought about, we just finished talking about Mary, and Mary is chapter 19, and 1 plus 9. Hmm, 19. Love it. Society Eject says Prakriti, other side 1 and 2, 24. Oh, goodness. Prakriti has the other side. The other side of Purusha. All right, number 4. Okay, you said, sorry, page 24, 1 and 2. Sly says, is that like saying God and nature are one by saying Prakriti and Brahman are one? Well, yeah, see, that's the thing. Not only is Prakriti and nature and God the same, but remember here, we're talking about two aspects of one thing. Yes, Brahman is Prakriti, it's also Purusha. But the thing is, to understand Prakriti, we have to understand her relationship with Purusha, because the two are connected. They're two sides of the same pole. They exist together. CJ says, is Brahma and Brahman different functions? Absolutely. Brahma and Brahman refer to two different expressed entities, or two different ideas, two different concepts. Brahma can be seen as part of the triad of gods, right, where we get the Holy Trinity from. Brahma represents the creator aspect, Vishnu represents the sustainer aspect, and Shiva represents the destroyer aspect. God, generator, operator, destroyer. So, and Shiva is seen as a destroyer not because he comes and tears shit up, but because when your consciousness becomes merged with Shiva, when you realize the state of Shiva or even the state of Purusha, you quickly start to realize the aspects of your life that were under an illusion, under a spell. And upon realizing that, it loses its effect on you. It's the chains that bind you are destroyed. The false illusion of life is destroyed. The same thing with Kali. When you realize the truth about these states of existence, what is untrue begins to dissolve and fall apart. So coming into the consciousness of Shiva doesn't mean the world's gonna blow up and everyone's gonna die. No, it means that you see the truth for what it is, and you literally wake up. It's like waking up from a dream, realizing that it was just a dream the whole time. Lance Benefield, greetings. Wolverine, peace. Okay, so look, you can even say the second line and replace it with Bina. It says here, Prakriti is Pradhana, the main cause. All the effects of manifestation are dependent on Prakriti, yet Prakriti is independent of all the effects. Same thing with Bina. As Bina exists in the supernal triad across the abyss, right? All the effects of manifestation depend on Bina, yet Bina is independent of all the effects. That's why Doth exists where it is. That's why the abyss exists where it is. Because everything beneath the abyss is an effect of the cause that was inherent in Bina. This abyss exists, this gulf, this gap, because everything down here that can ever be manifest was originally a seed here. So no matter what happens with the seed, no matter as the seed grows and it develops and it becomes something, becomes this, that, and the third, none of that changes what's happening up here. What's up here is eternal and unchanging. But this is the world of change and mixture and movement and time and space, right? Time and space are absorbed into themselves once you cross this abyss, once you cross this gulf. So really, to think about these concepts, you've got to stretch your mind. We're dealing with stuff that you've never thought about before, or at least not in depth. So in a way, each one of these levels represent a state of consciousness, a state of existence. The upper triad does not change. It's eternal. That's why the abyss is there, because the abyss is separating what is eternal from what is temporary. Oh boy. Stuff gets pretty heavy, huh? All right, let's keep going. Number 4. Prakriti is known as Avyakta or Mula Prakriti, the unmanifest, where all the causes and effects exist in a state of dormancy. Prakriti is the cause of all causes. When all causes remain in a state of dormancy, their potential effects are also dormant. They are unmanifest and imperceptible, right? So that, again, this is describing what we've come to know as Bina. And this also relates to Brahma. And that was a good question that you asked in the chat, ZJ, about is Brahma and Brahman different functions. As I mentioned, Brahma represents the creator aspect of the Trinity, generator, operator, destroyer. Brahma represents the generator aspect, the creator aspect. So like it says here, Prakriti is one with Brahma. Prakriti is the cause of all causes. The cause of all causes. And the thing is, when all causes remain in a state of dormancy, their potential effects are also dormant, right? So again, like I said, the blueprint realm, the prototype realm, the unmanifest and imperceptible realm, there's a state of existence where all cause and effect are absorbed into themselves as pure potentialities. This is what you're getting at when you go higher into these realms. 5. Prakriti is also known as Anumana, inference, because the nature of Prakriti cannot be recognized or perceived directly. There is no direct knowledge of Prakriti, but you can speculate. You can infer the existence of Prakriti and her qualities by looking at various effects and considering the causes of those effects, which are themselves expressions of Prakriti. However, the causes and effects are countless, so the totality of Prakriti cannot be known. The effects are gross and subtle. Subtle effects are beyond the perception of the five senses, but the aid of inference is necessary even with gross effects. So Samkhya says it is impossible to know the depth and potency of Prakriti through sense-based cognition, right? So it's not just about feeling, it's not just about a crystal or a candle or anything that you can interact with your five senses. This actually goes deeper than that, right? Samkhya says it is impossible to know the depth and potency of Prakriti through sense-based cognition. The only way to know something of the nature of Prakriti is through Anumana, inference, based on gross or subtle effects. And this is quite valid. Consider, for example, what are the causes and the effects of ego? Nobody can answer this fully. It can be inferred that this may be the cause and that may be the effect, or this may be the source and that may be the result. However, no direct sensory perception of ego is possible. Our deductions about it are all inference. Therefore, one of the names is Prakriti Anumana. Wow. Lance Benefield says, I was watching your 3-hour video you did days ago last night. I went to sleep, woke up, and started playing it again. And the second caller still talking. I got to finish it tonight after work. Gotcha. RMZO28 says, isn't Doth the gateway to the Clip-Off? Not Doth, but the Abyss. The Abyss can be considered the gateway to the Clip-Off. Doth is the gateway between Bina and Chesed. So understand that when we're talking about that, we're dealing with two different things. So Doth is this little strip of access between Bina and Chesed, between the unmanifest supernal prototype realm and the manifest dimension. There's a very thin line to cross that gap, because only what is eternal can cross this gap, not what is temporary and what is false. It's too heavy and it's too big to cross that ladder. So guess what happens if you're not able to cross this? There's an abyss beneath it. This is actually a bridge across an abyss. And into that abyss falls everything that is not fit to ascend to this higher level. And that not fitness, that unfitness, depends entirely on whether this thing is eternal or not. Right? So there's a lot of temporary things about life that are not eternal. Right? Things like individual ego and personality and memories and all the stuff that we think make us unique and different. That stuff doesn't go across the abyss. Not because it's evil, just because it belongs to the lower realms. Personality and memory and all that stuff was created down here. It was created down here. So it has to stay down here. What actually goes up here is what is behind the ego, the memories, the personality, and the spirit. So yeah, that abyss down there, some say that is the gateway to the cliff off, right? It's kind of behind the tree. That's where all the refuse goes. That's where all the things that are imperfect go. So yeah. Sly says, and yet the eternal, the upper triad, the Trinity is in real time an exact reflection of the rest of the tree. Absolutely. Society Eject says, the cause of all causes. Sly says, right, both the subtle and gross are one, like the ocean is both the upper waves and the movement, and still quiet, dark, subtle depths. Society Eject, so our body is the expressions of Prakriti. Absolutely. Hilary Velasquez says, did you notice my comments on your other videos? Yeah, but one of them seems to be deleted, so I didn't get to read the whole thing. Good evening, by the way, Hilary. RMZO28 says, is that the same concept as your heart being heavier than a feather? Absolutely. Absolutely. RMZO28 says, you cannot cross the abyss if you still have those attachments, which is why you must practice vairagya. Right, you got it. You exactly got it. Lance Benefield says, what's the white girl's name who was the first Zoom caller 3 days ago? She had great insight. Well, that would be Alora. Alora. Hillary says, oh, good evening. Where are you from? I'm from Oregon. Peace over there in Oregon. I'm in Georgia. Good old Georgia. We got the best peaches down here. And watermelon. Society Eject says, yo, I just realized on that book the picture of the soul. It doesn't go past Doth. Al-Diki says, there's no way around this. Wow. In a hadith, Muhammad said, when you die, you cross a bridge and most will slip and fall back down to the hells below. Oh, shit. Yeah, man. Yeah. That's powerful. Hikate, good evening. Welcome, welcome. Alora, peace and greetings. Looks like you are present. Welcome, welcome. Hikate says, hi, I'm happy you're still here. I'm not going anywhere. I may slip a little bit, but I do not stay down, that's for sure. All right, let's keep going because we got some really important stuff here. And I mean that. And you're going to see. I'm just taking my time to make sure that this is fully expressed, fully explained, fully breaking down. You know what I'm saying? Gerald Sombra says, y'all better learn how to fly, right? Hey, you know what I'm saying? All the information is here. Like, this is the information age. Now at this point, it's up to you if you're serious. That's it. You have access to all the information you need. Now what needs to happen is you activating that information, you taking action on it. Lance Benefield says, Travis, you went in on the soul on the video you did 10 days ago. Yeah, man. That's the one that I was talking about as far as being a primer for this information. Like, this is where all that comes from. So I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm highly recommending that all of you get this book and study it because I'm not doing this for fun. This is serious shit right here. This is serious. God, this is, I saw Doctor Strange. Awesome, awesome. Let me know what you thought about it because I know you saw Lilith all up in and through that. Higher understanding, peace. Alligator the Greater. Peace, brother, peace. Yes. That Yoga and Kriya book came in. And yeah, there's some pretty nice stuff in there. So I appreciate that, bro. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Prakriti. So there is no direct knowledge of Prakriti, but you can speculate because Prakriti is bigger than the body and bigger than the mind. Prakriti is even more subtle than just that. I break that down a little bit more in my book, talking about basically how we exist in frequency, right? And like I mean that, I'm not just saying like deep buzzwords. Your frequency is represented by how frequently you do a thing. So check this out. All of your actions that you perform on a daily basis, repetitively, all the thoughts that you're thinking in your head, all the words that you consistently say, the feelings that you consistently feel, the repetition of those creates a frequency. If you were to sit down and track how you feel on a weekly basis or a monthly basis and just track, you're going to start seeing recurring patterns. That's called a frequency, right? You can look at the words that you say and think, the type of things that you do, right? The activities that you engage in, right? And how frequently you do a thing, that determines what frequency you're at. Now, see, here's the thing. The time and the time frames are what kind of get us lost on this, because a frequency can happen in a split second. It can also happen in the span of a lifetime, right? So if we listen to music, those are frequencies that are happening within the span of about 5 minutes or so. But yet if you stretch your whole life out from when you were born to when you die, that is a frequency in totality. That's a whole ass frequency right there, right? Likewise, look at the time span between, I don't know, the existence of the human race or the existence of the solar system, right? The sun has a frequency. And it's not necessarily a sound that you hear on YouTube. It's represented by how it behaves. There's different sunspot patterns that happen like every 11 years or so. It's a repeating frequency. So everything that we do exists within frequency. But just like what this chapter is talking about, you got to ask, what's causing that? What's causing the frequency? If you never analyze the cause of why you behave, speak, think, and feel the way that you do, if you never take a look at that, what's controlling you? What's actually controlling you? So it's very important to become aware of yourself, because there's a lot of stuff happening in the unconscious and the subliminal, which means below the liminal level, which means it's below what you can detect. So there's a, like, you might crave certain things, you have certain passions, you might have drive to do things or fears. You're expressing behavior, but if you're not aware of the cause is controlling you. You're unaware of it, and it drives you like a horse, right? Or a ox or a bull pulling the plow behind it, milling the ground. The ox don't know what the hell it's doing. It's just moving forward, chasing the carrot, I suppose. So it's extremely important to pay attention to the causes of your behavior, the cause of your thoughts, the cause of your feelings. Lahiri, peace and greetings. Good to see you. Al Dickey says, burning through this bright liner. Yes, I told you, it's highly highlightable. Because also, when you start paying attention to these causes, you're going to easily start to see what all this talk is about thought forms, right? Thought forms. Because there's collection of behavior patterns that are repeated so much by so many people, you can't help but see it as existing as its own thing. And all these different thought forms that exist, these are the real strings that are pulling the puppets of people, right? Including ourselves. There are many things that we do that we don't really pay attention to why we do them. Those are strings, just like a puppet is controlled by different strings. And if you don't recognize it, you have no control over it. Self-analysis is extremely important for growth. Otherwise, you continue on that frequency, repeating the same stuff that you always do. Good stuff. Matthew Watson, peace. Yeah, so the important thing to know about this is non-attachment, because the strings aren't necessarily just controlling you against your will. You're attached to the strings. You willingly submit to this type of control. You give yourself to it. You give yourself to it simply by remaining unaware. You give yourself to it by remaining ignorant to the cause of your behavior. So as long as you're ignorant to the cause of your behavior, you have no real say in it, right? We call it free will, but is it really free will if you cannot control why you behave the way that you behave? So the good news is the more time that you spend being aware in the moment and paying attention to yourself, the more these strings start to reveal themselves. And from that point, you can decide what to do. Some strings are good to have, some not so much. But that's for you to decide. Let's continue with this chapter. Prakriti is known as Jada, meaning material or insentient. In Prakriti, the possibility of creating the gross exists. Here, gross means insentient, not aware. Jada is material existence minus consciousness, where there is absence of perception and cognition. Prakriti is also called achetana, meaning unconscious or unconsciousness. The consciousness is absent. Prakriti contains inherent activity or motion without awareness, right? Again, Prakriti contains inherent activity or motion without awareness. The meanings of Achetana and Jada are similar. So that's another thing. Prakriti does not have a mind. It is activity and motion without awareness. Gerald Sombright says, I used to talk to a girl with that name. We don't talk no more. Yeah. What kind of parents would give their child this name? Seven. So we saw that Prakriti was also called Brahma. Let's see what else. Prakriti is also known as Maya because it sets limits. Now, before I said, and I'll probably say it again a bunch, all goddesses are the same goddess. All the female entities are the same entity. Please understand that. Just wearing a different outfit, performing in a different role or different function. And Prakriti is no less. Maya is an entity or a deity. Prakriti is also known as Maya because it sets limits. Maya limits or defines the area in which a form can manifest, thrive, and grow. Prakriti functions through cause and effect, and each effect has a limit. A cause, in general, limits the manifestation of its effects. If a seed is the cause of a tree, the effect will be a tree. It won't be fire. If clay is the cause of a pot, the effect will not be a glass pot. So the potent cause limits the expression of the effect, and in Samkhya, this is recognized as Maya. Here, Maya does not mean illusion, rather it means the force which limits, creates a boundary, and defines an effect. As the full potential of Prakriti can never be totally manifest, Prakriti is called Maya. Now check this out. If you have taught with Shuddhi, open it up to page 45, and you'll see that Maya exists on that chart far above Prakriti. So even still, if you follow that up, it can be traced back to Shakti. All goddesses are the same goddess. Alora, that's a great point. Alora says deities are incarnations of one another. And that's what I mean. That's what I mean. In the same way that Bina represents the mother of all, right? You see the black sphere up here at Bina, right? Now, so you'll see people who are who still have ego attachment to the material plane and to the flesh, and then they'll get like a spiritual download, but then it'll be skewed because of their attachment. So you'll look online, and even in a comment in one of my recent posts about Kali, and people are talking about how the black woman is the god, black woman is the goddess, black woman. But the thing is, as we mentioned this chapter before, soul has absolutely nothing to do with what is manifest. So that can't be true. But what they get that from is Kabbalah. Notice Binah, the mother, that sphere is represented by black, right? The color black. That's the sphere that all forms begin in her womb and give birth as manifestation. So it's not talking about a person. It's not talking about a race of people. We're talking about spiritual concepts. There's a difference between spiritual concepts and material concepts. This is why it's so important to practice non-attachment, so that you don't get confused when you learn higher knowledge. Confusions means that you start attributing spiritual qualities to physical things and believing that the physical things are the spiritual things that they represent. Right? You're not looking at the tree of life here. You're looking at a drawing and a depiction of the tree of life. In NLP, we say the map is not the territory. So you can be looking at your map or your GPS or whatever, but that's not the actual road. That's just giving you a hint and a guide and a clue to how to navigate. Likewise, don't take this stuff as being excruciatingly literal. It's symbolic, it's abstract, it's subjective to help point your awareness in the right direction. Check. Stray Panther, peace, peace, brother, peace. Lance Benefield says Mahamaya is the mother of Buddha. Yes. All right. Prakriti is known as Maya. So the potent cause limits the expression of the effect, and in Samkhya, this is recognized as Maya. Here, Maya does not mean illusion. Rather, it means the force which limits, creates a boundary, and defines the effect of a cause. This is the same thing that happens when the sperm enters the egg in the womb, and now that life force is being limited, it's being contained, it's being forced into a physical body, right? It's being limited. That's what Maya does. That's what Maya does. So again, if you have taught Washuti, which you probably should by now, go to page 45 and you'll see that whole chart. And it shows you what exactly Maya limits. If you look on page 42 and 43, it tells you in that book exactly what Maya does, what it limits. It limits omnipotence of the soul, or excuse me, it limits your perception of omnipotence. It limits your perceptions of omniscience. And everything that would define you as a God type of being. Maya limits the awareness of those things, so you start to believe in the limitation. And if you behave on your beliefs of limitation, then you'll continue to manifest more limitation. And now we're getting into karma and reincarnation, etc., etc., etc. Number 8, another entity, right? Prakriti is known as Shakti, right? As I just said, if you look on page 45, you're going to see in that chart. Prakriti is known as Shakti because of the continuous motion inherent within it. Motion is possible even in insentient objects. A wheel is not aware that it exists, but the function of a wheel is to move. In the same way, Shakti is motion, whether conscious or unconscious. So, in the system of these Hindu deities, you'll notice that for every male deity, there's also a female deity, right? They come in pairs. This doesn't mean that there's a man in space and a woman in space with superpowers, right? That's an elementary perception of it. Understand that these are symbols. So when you see Shiva, you'll see his shakti. The feminine aspect of the deity represents their power, represents what they're capable of doing in the manifest world. So what that would mean is the masculine entity is unmanifest. It doesn't move and it doesn't do anything. It's just the pure the pure how do I put it? It's the pure consciousness aspect. Whereas the Shakti, the feminine side, represents the expression of that concept. So keep that clear as well. We're not talking about who's better, man or woman. We're not talking about anything basic like that. When you're looking at these entities, what you're dealing with is the masculine side represents what type of consciousness it represents, and the feminine represents the Shakti, the power, the expression of that consciousness in the gross and subtle world. Alligator the Greatest says the chart on page 45 of Tatwashudi is a damn sigil, lol. It should be at this point. Stray Panther says polarities of energies, positive and negative, Duracell, right? When you get your batteries activated, you are able to do a lot more. So again, just like a wheel, the function of a wheel is to move, but the wheel's not aware of itself. In the same way, Shakti is motion, whether conscious motion or unconscious motion. 9. Prakriti is known as avidya because it is opposite to vidya or knowledge. Prakriti is opposite to knowledge. Prakriti is the unknown or unrecognized potential. Prakriti is the unknown or unrecognized potential. For example, the potential of a seed remains unknown until it develops into a particular kind of tree, with a certain type of leaf, flower, and fruit. At night, when darkness envelops everything, the colors and shapes of objects cannot be distinguished. But that does not mean that they have ceased to exist. These are examples of avidya, where there's no perception, no recognition, no knowledge of an effect, whereas recognition is vidya. This concept of Prakriti is as avidya has been defined in Vedantic Samkhya rather than in Ishvara Krishna's Samkhya. Here, Prakriti is considered to be the potent and primary cause of the entire creation. This applies not just to one world or form of creation, but to hundreds of millions of worlds and forms. Multiverse. Some of these forms are animate and some inanimate, some sentient due to the infusion of consciousness and some insentient. Samkhya describes every form of creation, whether gas, liquid, bacteria, or human being, as an evolute of Prakriti, because it has function, action, and quality. Every manifest thing may not have all these attributes. Some may have only function and quality, others may have only quality. Creation can be one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, four-dimensional, and beyond. What we perceive as consciousness is totally different. It seems to move with Prakriti, but is actually an attribute of Purusha. In the absence of consciousness, Prakriti simply manifests different dimensions and forms. Again, in the absence of consciousness, Prakriti simply manifests different dimensions and forms. There are countless expressions of reality with various levels of consciousness, right? So, the reality that we exist in here, we have a certain level of consciousness to be aware of this particular expression of Prakriti. But there are other worlds where there's little to no consciousness, and there are other worlds where there's more consciousness than there is matter. Infinite. Sunshine Chick says, can you say Shakti is Shiva's servitor? I think you could say that, but I would hesitate to say that because I want to make sure that we give equal respect uh, of power to both the Shiva and the Shakti, to both masculine and the feminine. I like to try my best to keep them both balanced with each other, because Shiva can exist without Shakti. Shakti can exist without Shiva, but Shakti without Shiva is dormant and just not really doing anything really. But together, they cause life. Stray Panther says stimulator, maybe. Yeah, and that's another good one, because what we do see, what we will get from this book, is that they do have an intimate relationship. They cause, well, got to be careful with the words, but there is a harmony between how they both engage with each other. The movement of Shakti is entirely for Shiva. And once Shiva becomes totally aware of itself, the Shakti now ceases to move and goes back into her dormant state. And I'm sure she's probably tired at this point and is ready for a nice long nap. Hence why we have to read these books and meditate, so we can put her back to sleep. Lance Benefield says masculine is electric and feminine is magnetic. Right on, right on. Hecate says exactly, it's balanced to continue the order of creation. Right. Okay, alright, let's keep going. Goodness gracious. So yeah, what we perceive as consciousness is totally different. It seems to move with Prakriti, but is actually an attribute of Purusha. Consciousness is an attribute of Purusha. In the absence of consciousness, Prakriti simply manifests different dimensions and forms. Prakriti is known as avidya because there is no recognition by the being or object. Samkhya says if fire had consciousness, it would know I burn. But it does not have consciousness and is not aware that it burns. If water had consciousness, it would know I flow. But it does not have the consciousness necessary to know its own quality. We consider bacteria as animate beings, but do they consciously know their own quality? We consider bacteria as animate beings, but do they consciously know their own quality? Animals are animate forms with their own modes of thinking, expression, and behavior. They know that they exist and interact with other animals or people. So the different stages of evolution, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, are levels of Prakriti. You see that? Check this out. All levels of evolution have different degrees of self-consciousness, self-awareness, and self-identity. Right? All levels of evolution have different degrees of self-consciousness, self-awareness, and self-identity. That goes down to the mineral kingdom, the vegetable, the animal, the human, the angel, the archangel, the God form, etc., etc. It actually goes infinitely in both directions. There are lower life forms than minerals, and there are higher life forms than humans. Infinite range of expression. And while human beings have this tendency to think of ourselves as the smartest and the greatest thing in the universe, we'd be quite surprised exactly where we are situated on this totem pole of existence. We'd be very surprised if we actually saw the levels of the infinite levels and ways that consciousness expresses itself. And I'm specifically talking about life forms that are extremely more intelligent than us. And when I say intelligent, I don't just mean they're smart. I mean that they're aware of the truth to deeper degrees than we actually are. But we'll get into that. Society Eject says this is next level. It really is. It really is, and it can't be rushed. But yeah, it really is. I hope that you guys are highlighting. Nuru says you have to keep in mind there are variations of what is being read based on different times, eras, yogi lineages, and evolving descriptors of the undescribable in the Vedas and Upanishads. That is true. Even what we're seeing here is coming through the lens of a particular teacher and a particular school of thought. There are other variations of this same science. So please understand that he even mentioned right here in this page, he says that there's Vedantic Samkhya and there's also Ishvara Krishna Samkhya. So that right there are two different types of Samkhya. So just be aware that even in this information, there are variations depending on who's teaching it. So again, this is why it's good to cross-reference and read multiple sources so that you can have a more expansive grasp on the subject matter. In other words, the writing of Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati is not, the word of God, but we can trust that this information is coming from a credible source. At the end of the day, all he can do is teach you how to come into an awareness of this information from within yourself. So you literally have to go back to that last book of Gyan Yoga and sit still the body, still the mind, become the observer, and really take this stuff into meditation. That's going to be how you get the actual word from God. Not necessarily because somebody wrote it in a book or because somebody that you like said it. So keep in mind, all I'm saying is you can't skip the work aspect. Because just like Nuru said, a lot of this stuff is coming from different human teachers. But like I said also, these are credible sources because we know that these people are putting in the work. We can tell based on their actions in life and what they've left behind. We can tell that they've been doing the work. You don't write books like this if you're, hanging out every weekend. Hanging out every weekend at the local watering hole. This information comes from a stillness of body and a stillness of mind. And spending time in the presence of the soul. This type of information comes out from those levels. And you can tell because as you absorb this information and put it into practice, it begins to change your life. That's how you can tell that this stuff is potent. Not because it sounds good to your ears, but because it actually produces a change in your life. That's how you know this stuff is real. Society Eject says, sounds like the book of Job, chapter 39. Book of Job, chapter 39. I wonder what that's about. Job is after Proverbs. I might have to crack open the table of contents to find that. It's been a while. Job 3:12. Nope, before Proverbs. Before Psalms. Job 39. That's where he challenges Job. Man. Whew. Good stuff. Good stuff. Pink Jessica 1111. Hope you're having a great evening. Al Dickey says, here we go again. The Quran says, Allah asked the mountains and trees, do they want the knowledge? And they said, no, we don't want the burden that man will have. Yeah. Nah, you can leave that to the human beings. I don't want none of that. Don't you just love how this stuff connects? And don't you also love how you realize you didn't waste your time? That was just the beginning stages of your education. I smile on my days as a Christian because I learned a lot of valuable things in that time. Never feel like you wasted your time. Everything is a lesson. All levels of evolution have different degrees of self-consciousness, self-awareness, and self-identity. Remember that. A stone is considered to be jada, or inert. But if that stone suddenly gets an injection of consciousness, it will recognize and express itself as a stone. Jada is insentience, material existence minus consciousness. Avidya is not existence minus consciousness, but existence minus recognition. Consciousness is one thing, and recognition is another. Again, that's going to be very good to have in your head, in your toolbox, your tool belt. Consciousness is one thing, and recognition is another. You may be conscious, but suddenly you recognize something. That recognition is an added realization of something within consciousness. Recognition is vidya, and the absence of that is avidya. So avidya does not mean absence of consciousness. Avidya is present even in conscious beings. Straight Panther 79 says, LOL, Jada, huh? Oh, perfect timing. Jada. Man, oh man. 10. Prakriti is known as Swatantra, meaning the independent principle. Prakriti is independent, even though all forms of creation are dependent upon it. Prakriti is not dependent on anything to manifest itself. No secondary state is necessary for Prakriti. You see that? Prakriti is independent. Purusha is independent. They both bring something to the table. Peace, Daniel Price. Straight Panther says, makes ritual sense too, just saying. Ah. But it would seem that in that specific case, Jada was representing consciousness, or Shiva, and Will was representing Shakti, because he was the active principle of her non-active principle. Just in that scenario, just looking at the relationship between Shiva and Shakti, or the masculine and the feminine. So in that case, it was swapped. But then again, masculine and feminine don't have anything to do with the physical expression, but has everything to do with the cause of that expression. Remember, human thinking is limited because human thinking only depends on what it can observe with the five senses. So, you got to know, coming into the spiritual information, it's going to take something extra besides just your five senses. You're going to have to lean on a deeper level of understanding. MC Maestro says Jada was Professor X, Will Smith was Rogue. used to love me some Rogue. Heck yeah. Niru says, and Brahma is just a little god, four-faced god, who is a lower, human-like god with a wife, Saraswati. But Brahma, with his human family, is an expression, conceptual projection of Brahman. Oh. MC Maestro says, I just broke down masculine and feminine, cause and effect to a friend earlier. Let him know. Daniel Price says, all three have all three in one, all being forms yet formless. Yes. Having forms yet formless. So, 11. Prakriti is known as akarana, which means uncaused. Prakriti is the root of all causes, but has no cause in itself, nor is it the effect of any cause. Prakriti is independent of any cause, yet it is the cause of all manifest existence. If you remove Prakriti, everything is removed. Now, I know to you this might sound like something that's like huge and big and beyond your experience, but when I tell you, don't think so large. Start zooming in instead of zooming out, okay? When you're thinking about these entities and these essences and what's being described here, don't think about outer space and some giant universe side. No, go in the opposite direction. And here's what you're going to find. Here's what you're going to find, and you can only find this when you operate within stillness. The deeper that you observe yourself, you're going to notice that everything you do, everything that you say, everything that you think, everything that you feel, by the way, that's the four worlds. Asaya being the world of doing, action. Uh, Yetzirah being the word of speaking. Bria being the world of thinking. And then Ataluth being the world of feeling. On all four of those worlds, if you look within, you're going to find that everything that you do is coming from a subtle impulse, right? In a split second of time before you do or say or do any of that, in a split second of time, something caused you to behave. Now, most of the time it happens so fast that we're not aware of it. We're only aware of the effect, right? I'm only aware that I decided to grab this book, cut on my phone, and do a reading, right? But something caused that. When we're looking at Prakriti, when we're looking at the soul, when we're looking at the interaction between Purusha and Prakriti, that's where it is. It exists in the realm and the space of just before you did, said, thought, or felt a thing. That's the Akashic realm. The Akashic realm is happening before happening, right? So if we're looking at time and we're tracking every second, imagine that there was a split moment before every second that all of time is emanating out of. That's where you're going to find Purusha and Prakriti. Not in outer space somewhere, but at the very center of everything. The center of everything is found right here, right now. Nuru says inner space and outer space are the same thing once you realize Brahman. But to have the experience of the creator, you must let go of being the creature. Absolutely. You must let go of being the creature. Because being attached, even at that deep level that I talked about, even at that deep level, before action, before word, before thought, before feeling, at that deep, subtle level, we are attached to this expression. We're attached to the body. We're attached to the frequency and the pattern of our life. We're attached to it. So we see ourselves as something separate. We see ourselves as the effect. We don't see the cause. So again, I recommend and urge that you take some time in your life to incorporate stillness so that you can just pay attention to yourself. Like I said, it's not necessarily out there, it's everywhere, sure, but you having a personal experience of what we call the atman, you're going to have to be still and look within. And then when you do that and you make contact with reality, then you're going to see that atman is the same thing as brahman. There's actually a chapter in here that talks about the plurality of Purusha, the aspect of multiple souls. That's an interesting chapter. But let's start here. Lance Benefield says, this reminds me of that verse. A man shall leave his family and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Man. See, we thought he was talking about marriage, huh? Yes, marriage, but a different kind of marriage. Good one, Lance. All right, so consciousness is one thing and recognition is another. Also, Prakriti is independent, even though all forms of creation are dependent upon her. Prakriti is the root of all causes, but has no cause in itself, nor is it the effect of any cause. Prakriti is independent of any cause, yet it is the cause of all manifest existence. If you remove Prakriti, everything is removed. Prakriti is avyayava, partless, right? And I keep saying all of matter is one thing. I keep saying that. Check this out. Prakriti is avyayava, partless, while all manifestations have parts. Prakriti is one, whereas objects can be many. Prakriti is infinite, while the objects are finite. Listen to me when I tell you, all of matter is one thing. Partless. The manifestations have parts, sure, but Prakriti is one. Prakriti is infinite, while the objects are finite. 13. Prakriti is called adrishya, imperceptible, because of its subtle nature, which is unmanifest and cannot be perceived. That's what I'm talking about. At that akashic level, that's where the cause and the impetus of your expression resides. That's where your karma is. That's where the origin of all of your thoughts, deeds, behaviors, and everything. That's what causes you to become attached to matter. And that's what causes you to be under the influence and the effect of astrology. You feel me? Society Eject says, yep, most of this stuff is happening in the pranamaya kosha, right? And that's only one level up. Just imagine at the other levels. Z Skywalker says a keen observation casts good judgment. Absolutely. MC Maestro says, just as you read that, the dad of a nest outside my window came back to feed the young while the mother guards. Nice. Mama. Prakriti is imperceptible because of its subtle nature, which is unmanifest and cannot be perceived. Prakriti is nirvayaktika, impersonal, because there is absence of buddhi, intelligence and will. Prakriti is shashvata, eternal, because it is beyond time and space. Prakriti is eternal because it is beyond time and space. Prakriti gives birth to time and space in order to create. Prakriti is permanent, being the cause of all causes, while all other causes are impermanent. Are we talking about that black sphere in the top left corner? Oh, Lord. I think so. I think so. Prakriti is Shashvata, eternal, because it is beyond time and space, just like the upper triad, just like Bina. Prakriti gives birth to time and space in order to create. Prakriti is permanent, being the cause of all causes, while all other causes are impermanent. Prakriti is trigunatmika, wherein the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, exist in the state of total equilibrium. The gunas are not parts or attributes of Prakriti, but constitute Prakriti as a whole. Prakriti is made up of these three gunas in the balanced state of samya avastha. Gunanam samya avastha Prakriti. So we're getting to the gunas here. The gunas are not parts of Prakriti, but the gunas are Prakriti herself. What does it say here? Prakriti is known as a substance, dravya. In Samkhya, the three gunas are substances. They are not attributes of a substance, but are recognized as substance itself. This might be difficult to really grasp, but please understand, when we talk about the three gunas, they're not qualities, they're not attributes. They are the substance of Prakriti. Prakriti is the three gunas. The three gunas are Prakriti. That's important. The gunas, which are the substance of Prakriti, go through a process of combination and permutation to become the cause of the manifestation of different causes and effects. The gunas allow the perception or recognition of Prakriti to take place. In the absence of sattva, rajas, and tamas, Prakriti would not be recognized or understood. Therefore, the final attribute of Prakriti is trigunatmika. Oh boy. Let's see, Maestro says Apex squad of 3. I've been off. I missed so much. I don't want to jump back in because I feel like I'll be so behind. But I do miss Apex. That was one of the most fun games I've ever played. Fortnite's a lot of fun, but I do miss Apex. Apex was a different kind of fun. Chapter 4, the three gunas. So let's learn a little bit more about what constitutes Prakriti. Prakriti. If you're just now tuning in, go ahead and hit that like button. It'd be cool to see more likes than actual people that are here. Let's read chapter 4, the three gunas. Why are there three gunas? Why not 1 or 2 or 4 or 5? If only one guna existed, it could not be responsible for hundreds and thousands of different manifestations. One guna can be responsible for only one kind of manifestation. Just as one flower seed can give birth to only one type of flower, two gunas will always be opposing and negating each other, like day and night, sun and shade. With three gunas, the possibility of myriads of existences results, and therefore a fourth is not necessary. Interesting. So if there was only one, if Prakriti was only one, if there was only one guna, there would only be one thing. So there's no mixing, no matching, no creation. But if there was two, then there would constantly be opposition. But with there being three, that throws a curveball in the mix. And with three, you don't need four. Interesting. The balanced form of the three gunas is known as Prakriti. The balanced form of the three gunas is known as Prakriti. So, one way to think about this is in percentage, right? Let's say like 100% is Prakriti. That represents all three gunas together, 100%. Now, within that 100%, those three gunas can be expressed in different percentages. If it was perfectly balanced, we could say 33% rajas, 33% tamas, 33% sattva, right? We could say there might be, 25% here, and then the other will make up the rest. different percentages, and for every different percentage, there's a different creation. There's a different thing that exists. Some things have very, very, very little to no sattva. Some have very, very little to no rajas, right? Different combinations. But each one of those combinations can be cataloged as a different thing in existence. So that's an infinite number of things, from different people to different animals to different experiences to different situations, different memories. All of it can be linked and traced to a specific percentage of Prakriti, right? So again, that's what we're talking about when we say Akashic records. You're literally, it's almost as if you're able to have this massive book and every page talks about a specific percentage of Prakriti, a specific percentage expression, right? That's the book of life that the Bible's talking about. The book that contains everything that has ever existed or will never exist. The balanced form of the three gunas is known as Prakriti. The gunas constitute Prakriti and are not mere attributes. The combination of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, leads to the concept of Prakriti as a force, as dynamism. Prakriti cannot be conceived of without the three gunas. According to Samkhya, Prakriti is a substance, or dravya, comprised of the three gunas, which allow realization and cognition. In every manifest object, these three gunas exist in the form of experience and give rise to understanding or knowledge, and from that we infer the existence of Prakriti. Classification of the gunas. The three gunas are subtle and imperceptible. Knowledge of the gunas can be obtained only through anumana, inference. The existence of sattva, rajas, and tamas is recognized or inferred from the presence of prakasha, light, kriya, motion, and sthiti, stability, respectively. So let's check that out one more time in case you missed it. The existence of sattva, rajas, and tamas, right, is recognized and inferred from the presence, right? He said sattva, rajas, and tamas. So check this out. Light, sattva. Motion, rajas. Stability, tamas. You see how that works? Light, motion, and stability. That's sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva gives birth to the feeling of sukha, or pleasure. Rajas gives birth to the feeling of dukkha, or pain. And tamas gives birth to the feeling udasina, passivity, or indifference. This classification is given in the Samkhya Karika as follows. Sattva is light or buoyant and illuminating, prakasha. So when he talks about light here in reference to sattva, not only light as in illumination light, but also light as in heavy versus light, right? It floats. Sattva is light or buoyant and illuminating. Rajas promotes desire and is stimulating and mobile, right? Stimulating and mobile, that's rajas. Tamas is heavy or sluggish and obscuring and enveloping. They function for a single purpose, like the components of a lamp, whose purpose is illumination. Every object in existence has the quality or capability to give a feeling of pleasure, sorrow, or indifference. If you look at a flower, you feel pleasure, sukha. If you look at human waste, you feel disgust, aversion, and rejection, which are aspects of dukkha. The gunas can be observed from different angles, physical and non-physical or psychological. The non-physical attributes are priti, which is attraction or affection, apriti, which is rejection, non-acceptance, and vishada, or indifference. The following chart shows the different qualities of the gunas. Exodus 66, like number 54, peace. Yeah, I should have highlighted that. So, the gunas can be observed from different angles, right? Physical and non-physical or psychological. The non-physical attributes are priti, which is attraction and affection, apriti, which is rejection and non-acceptance, and vishada, or indifference. Sattva gives birth to the feeling of pleasure, rajas gives the feeling birth to the feeling of pain, and tamas gives birth to the feeling of passive indifference. Sunshine Chick says energy, motion, inertia. Can you guys think of any other triads that sounds a whole lot like Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas? Again, like I said with God, God, generator, operator, destroyer. Generator would be Rajas, operator would be Sattva, Tamas would be destroyer. God, generator, operator, destroyer. The same way that Shiva is Tamas, Brahma is Rajas, and Vishnu is Sattva. You'll see this triad working in any system where there is a working system of threes. In any relationship of threes, you're going to see that one expresses one of these qualities more than the other does. That's just the recurring pattern of Prakriti. Can you think of any triads that this can be clearly seen within? One that I think of is the Three Stooges. The Three Stooges. Alicia M says Kether Hakma Bina. Perfect. Perfect. Right? Kether Hakma Bina. We know that Bina would represent Tamas. We know that Hakma would represent Rajas. Because look, isn't Hakma about this explosive energy that's going outward, bursting forward from Kether, which would be Sattva? So yeah, that's a perfect one right there, Alicia. Thank you. IDKDKDF says Osset, Osiris, Asar. Absolutely. Absolutely. The masculine, the feminine, and the child. Society Eject says yes, the Trinity. Alligator Degrader says proton, electron, and neutron. Right? Right? So yeah, and the whole point of that is just to recognize and realize that this stuff isn't just for people in India. This isn't just some type of yoga stuff. This is existence. This is life. It doesn't matter what you believe or where you came from. You're gonna find these same truths if you dig deep enough. Sometimes you don't have to dig deep enough. You just have to pay attention. But if you contemplate on different systems of triads, different systems of threes, you're gonna find the relationship being Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. But anyways, looking at this chart here, I'm sure you guys have the book. You can see it for yourself. If not, I'll read it. So we're talking about there's at least 3 different triads that he mentioned so far: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. We can also see that is illumination for Sattva, motion for Rajas, and passivity for Tamas. So Tamas is going to be the passive, Rajas is going to be the moving, Sattva is going to be the illuminated. Right? We got happiness coming from Sattva, we got pain coming from Rajas, and we got udasinata, which is indifference, coming from Tamas. So see that? Happiness, pain, and indifference. Now we've also got attraction coming from Sattva, rejection coming from Rajas, and indifference, once again, coming from Tamas. So keep that in mind. Kefri the God, peace, greetings. I was waiting for you to pop up. I had a feeling. Nuru says craving, aversion, and non-attachment. Absolutely. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And don't forget, there's even aspects of your own mind that express themselves in these three different ways, right? You got a tamasic aspect of your mind, right? And look at Thomas: passivity, indifference. You got a tamasic aspect of mind. You've also got a rajasic aspect of mind. As a matter of fact, mind left to its own nature is rajasic, constantly in motion, moving around, pain and rejection. You've also got a sattvic aspect of mind, and that's what we're really trying to cultivate. Because here's the thing: the more that you cultivate the sattvic aspect of mind, the tamasic aspect begins to shrink. The rajasic aspect begins to diminish, and sattva begins to expand. So that percentage I talked about, you're increasing the percentage of sattva and reducing the percentage of rajas and tamas through your spiritual work. So desire should begin to dissolve, right? Fear should begin to dissolve. That's a natural result of doing the work properly and increasing sattva in your life. A sattvic mind is illuminated, happy, and it experiences attraction towards more sattva. This classification of the gunas can be illustrated by somebody receiving the results of an exam. The past result gives the feeling of happiness. And according to this classification, happiness or sukha would come in the sattva state. If the exam was failed, there is dukkha. And according to this classification, the pain or sorrow comes in the category of rajas. There is apriti, rejection, aversion. And somebody who is unconcerned about passing or failing an exam would be indifferent. And this classification falls under tamas. There would be vishata or udasinata, indifference. So look, we even got a test here, that very same test, but three different minds, right? One mind is full of sattva, or rather, I should say, three different ways that this test can be approached. With a passing grade, you start to feel that sattvic experience. With a failing grade, you start to feel that rajasic experience. And if you never gave a damn in the first place, since you never gave a damn in the first place, maybe it's time to get the tables turned, because in the interest of all of y'all, I got the problem solved, and the verdict is guilty. Slipknot, spit it out. The tamasic mind didn't care in the first place. So again, like I said, your mind expresses itself in these three ways, these three flavors. Where your head at? Where your head at? Where your head at? Where's your head at? Society Eject says yes, and you can see this with the family, father, mother, and child. Exactly. Exactly. MC Maestro says definitely tamasic in class. Gotta switch gears. If that's what you want, because again, none of the stuff means inherently good or bad. Notice nowhere did he say good and evil, this is good, this is bad, right? We're talking about this as a science and just explaining what it is. So tamas does not mean evil. Somebody in the chat last book read mentioned something very, very clever that I didn't even think of. When you sit still and meditate and still your mind and still your body, that's actually tamasic. You're undergoing a tamasic process to do that, which is necessary. So tamas is not evil or bad, right? Understand that. These are just different expressions of mind, different expressions of life, different expressions of Prakriti and her beautiful self. So don't let these people have y'all going out repeating, life's a bitch. Life's not a bitch. Karma's not a bitch. That's not how this works. Now, if that's what you want to believe, then by all means, you can have your cake and eat it too. But that's not something in my vocabulary. I love Prakriti. I love life. I love this whole thing. And I'm extremely grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, to be a part of this, to be able to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if y'all understand, but this type of information is very special. It's very special. It literally has the power to change your life quickly, right? I have I have not come across anything like this until now. Like, and I've gone through a lot. You know what I'm saying? I've gone through a whole lot of different subjects, right? All from the demon stuff to the astrology stuff to the tarot stuff to the Kabbalah stuff, the mind control stuff, the NLP stuff. I've been through a lot of different things. I'm grateful to be able to come into the awareness and the experience of this information here. So I got nothing bad to say about life. I got nothing to complain about. Nothing to complain about. Even if things happen that don't feel good, I don't have time to waste to sit there complaining about it. I have all the time to be grateful and to appreciate what I have and what I don't have. I'm grateful for things I don't have, right? Life literally, you're going to experience what you train yourself to see. That's how this works. You're going to experience what you train yourself to see. What did Swami Niranjanananda say? You become what you believe. That is so true. You become what you believe, right? And this takes place on all the different levels and layers of your life. There have been times where I've become lucid in my dreams and I'm doing mantras in my sleep. I'm meditating in my dreams, right? That happens when you're doing it in real life so much that it begins to cross over into the subconscious mind. So what that means is, on multiple levels of my being, I'm doing this work. I've had dreams where I actually stop and meditate. I stop and do my mantras, right? Your life is what you create. I remember at one point I was having a nightmare and I literally stopped and did my mantras, and whatever it was that I was afraid of dissolved. You can do this, right? This is what you have the power. So just imagine if this stuff begins to trickle over and cross over into your dream state, how much deeper does it go when you're doing this work? Tatwashuddhi, she talks about how the specific ritual of Tatwashuddhi, the practice of Tatwashuddhi, it has the ability to heal you even at the soul level, right? Not just the physical, not just the mental and emotional, but at the soul level. And that's actually a level that you cannot directly influence. She says that highest aspect of self cannot be directly influenced. However, by influencing all the four lower bodies, by default it influences the fifth. So this is some serious stuff. Mo B, good evening, peace, peace. Kefri the God says we are living our thoughts. Absolutely. Society Eject says, yes, I was just sitting down thinking I came a long way, bro. I haven't had a suicide thought in years. Can you wait to see what else this path has in store for me? Amen, bro. Amen. Same. I have not felt any depressed, suicidal thoughts in a very long time. And it's almost kind of bizarre to think that I used to stay in that state for days, weeks, months, years. I used to stay in the depressed state. Like, that was the life that I knew. That seems so bizarre looking back, because that type of energy doesn't even enter my world. Sunshine Chick says purity. MC Maestro says teaching you how to become a force ghost. Uh-oh. Nuru says go Tama. The Buddha literally means ultimate. Go. Stillness. Tamas. He stayed so still meditating for days on end. So blissfully tamasic, it was like he forgot he was anything but Purusha. Okay, yeah, it was you. Thank you for that piece of information, Nuru. Yes. So it was you who brought that up. Good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, honestly, if you're having things happen in your life and you're feeling in a way that you wish was different, stay consistent on your spiritual path. It might not seem like this is a direct help, but what you'll understand is the more that you study this information, the more that your view of reality begins to shift. And as you shift your view of reality, you begin to perform differently. Because look, having is a result of doing, and doing is a result of being. And you can only be what you believe you are. And even at the subconscious level, everybody talks big. Oh, I'm a god, I'm this, that, and the third. But you've got subconscious influences that are saying other things. You'll never be good enough. You coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? All these negative things going on in your head. Until that stuff is neutralized, that is what you truly believe you are at a subconscious level. So understanding this information helps you to heal yourself at a subconscious level, which means that you change how you believe you are. You change what you believe that you are, and you become what you believe. And again, having what you have is a direct response and a direct effect of what you do. And what you do is a direct effect of what you are. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Gotta get your groove on. Like it or love it. Oh, good memories. Kefri the God says it's that inner voice that you must realize are not your thoughts, but influenced thoughts and behaviors manifested as truth over time. Eggs Blackley. To all my neighbors, you got much flavor. This is how we do it. Straight up coming from the west side. This is how we do it. Oh, cool. How random. So, like, I was posting on my story today about Durga and how Durga rides upon the lion and how that was the influence for the strength card. Because if you look at Durga and she's riding on that lion, sometimes a tiger, and you look at the strength card, and they mean the same thing. The strength card and Durga. I just randomly opened my book right here. Kefri the God says I got to get mine in a big black truck. Yeah, I was trying to remember that verse, but I couldn't. So I just flipped this randomly. Check out what I saw on page 261, right? This is Samson wrestling a lion. Now, according to Godwin in his Kabbalistic encyclopedia, which doesn't really touch on anything Vedic, he says Samson and the lion, probable prototype for the strength card of the tarot. Maybe. But I'm going to stick with Durga. I'm pretty sure that Durga is a closer correspondence to the strength card than Samson. Because the strength card isn't about brute strength. It's not about ripping a lion's head open. No, it's a different kind of strength. On the strength card, she's not ripping the lion's head open. She's playing with that cat as if that was her personal pet, right? You ever seen people that own lions? They're able to play with them and do things like open their mouth. You can't do that with no damn brute force. I don't care how many dreadlocks you got. Interesting though. Lance Benefield says one with the lion. Exactly. Right. The strength card is not about brute force and thrashing around and stomping around like you the big man on campus. No, this is a different kind of strength. Can you imagine the strength of love, right? As if that lion was a pet. That's a different kind of strength. Because that lion is working with you, not against you. The beast is tamed. If you know, you know. If not, hopefully you will learn, like this Adinkra symbol suggests. I was also learning about Adinkra keys and how ancient African cultures actually had their own yantras, their own symbols, which were compressed messages and deep compressed wisdom in the form of symbols. and they use them all over the place to continually remind themselves. The same way that we use sigils, right? The same way that I would draw a sigil with a compressed meaning and have it near me in my designs to remind me of what it is that I'd like to remember, to the point that it becomes subconsciously accepted because now it is in picture format. Yeah, this is actually a science that has been going on. This is probably where language originated from. Matter of fact, I'm certain that this is where language originated from. Yantras and symbols and sigils like this. So when we make sigils, we think that we're reducing a phrase to some primitive state, but in all actuality, it seems that our written language is a deteriorated version of what sigils actually are. Hieroglyphs and all that stuff. That's how language started. So in truth, by making sigils, we're accessing the most primal part of our human minds when it comes to language. Cool stuff. Did you know that? MC Maestro says certain martial arts you lead the opponent into their defeat. I like that. Kind of like America and Scarlet Witch. I think that's the better way. You could always beat someone with brute force, but it's so much better to allow them to defeat themselves because they have a better chance of learning their lesson that way, as opposed to just destroying them. Because then that energy and that karma is just going to leave and find a new representation. But if you can neutralize the threat at the deep level, it's not going to reincarnate. So not only do you win, but you also help the enemy. Gotta think bigger than the rest of the knuckleheads. Think big, dream big. You don't have to do it the same way that everyone else does it. You know what I'm saying? Imagine what would have happened if Krillin took that sword and killed Vegeta. Imagine what would have happened if Krillin took that sword and killed Vegeta, right? What would happen if Goku destroyed Piccolo when he had the chance to? You feel me? What would happen if all the androids 15, 16, and 17 got destroyed? What would happen if Boo was never turned into Oob, right? You gotta understand, just because something stands in your way doesn't mean it needs to be obliterated. Sometimes, and sometimes all the time, it just needs to be transmuted. There are no enemies. That's one of the reasons why I like Goku so much. Not just because he was, powerful and all that, but his power was deeper than just brute strength. He wasn't just out here fighting just to prove himself, right? No. He fought with love, with passion. He loved the game. He loved the sport. He loved just being and doing what he was here to do, right? How many of his enemies did he convert into friends that respect him? And check this out, not even just friends, but best friends, family type shit. Vegeta sticks next to that man like white on rice, and he's not going anywhere, right? Kakarot refuses to call Goku by his slave name, by his government name. Refuses. But he's there with him every step of the way. Same with Piccolo. Piccolo was his oldest enemy. Right there with him. Raised his son, right? Still gives him guidance and teaching and training when he needs him most. You saw him in the movie with Broly. Goku and Vegeta had to go to Piccolo to learn a little something. So it's not always about destroying and defeating what you're afraid of. Sometimes it's about all the time it's about transmuting it, right? That's why I work with demons. That's why I work with demonic spirits. Not so that I can hurt people, so that I can transform these aspects of myself that are not working in my favor. Do you hear what I'm saying? You got to think bigger than everybody else. You got to think deeper than everybody else. me call up some demons so I could hurt somebody. No. You work with these spirits so that you can transform them into your power, right? Don't be a pea brain. Don't be a autopilot NPC, right? Think about this thing for real. This is all about your evolution. It's not about what nobody else is doing. This is about your personal growth and evolution. And when you start to look at it from that lens, you save yourself a lot of stress, struggle, and drama. I don't have time to be out here at war with nobody. I don't have time to go back and forth in no comments because somebody does not like the way that I look. That's a personal problem. That ain't got a damn thing to do with Jesus. Let's continue. That's your motherfucking problem, mister. You say you got 2 kidneys. I got 2 kidneys, you got 2 kidneys. When it was bad, that's your motherfucking problem, mister. God, that skit was so funny. When nephew Tommy called the guy about the kidney, I swear, that's probably the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. I've been laughing about that thing for years. Nephew Tommy, can I have one of your kidneys? Look it up and listen to the whole thing in one sitting. I have that whole skit memorized. It's so funny. But anyways, let's get back to this. This ain't got a damn thing to do with Jesus. You can kiss my ass, mister. You can kiss my ass. Get off my phone. That's what you can do. He went from church. He went from polite Jesus church guy to cussing him out in one breath. Oh, that was funny. God bless and keep you. God bless and keep you. You got 72 demons in your head. You got 72 motherfuckers in your head. Had me get the quote wrong, Black Knight. All right, let's continue. Getting sidetracked here with the funnies. Nuru says, true strength is strength of charge. Like, think voltage organized, not disorganized charge, which is explosion. Implosion, gathering charge like a battery through samadhi. This is alchem, raising the Jed. Yeah. True strength is strength of charge. Think of voltage, organized, not disorganized charge, which is explosion, but implosion, gathering charge like a battery through samadhi. Nice. A little mighty hero says, hey, what is the first thing I need to do to attune my mind? Sit still and stop distracting yourself and actually analyze the process of your being. Analyze those thoughts, analyze those feelings, analyze your patterns. What are you doing on a day? Just pay attention to yourself. Pay attention. Get out of your emotions. Get out of your judgment. It's not about good or bad. Just pay attention and observe yourself. That's going to teach you. You are your own teacher. Observe yourself. That's the first step. The first step is get out of your way. Get out of your own way and observe yourself. And as you're doing that, you're going to begin to learn. That's the first step. Nuru says, George Lucas borrowed the Kemet raising the Jed, which is charge gathering in the body up the spine. The metaphor was his lightsaber. Jedi. Let's keep going. Okay, so in the description of Thomas, a difference arises between the Samkhya view in the Bhagavad Gita and the Samkhya of Kapila. The first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called Vishada Yoga, the yoga of depression. Here, Vishada is related to despair. But generally in Samkhya, Vishada simply means indifference, where there is neither attraction nor rejection, where things do not create an impression. Udasina implies the absence of impression, but it is different to the quality of witnessing. Indifference is where the mind perceives something momentarily and then leaves it, whereas witnessing is a state of total awareness, where the mind observes the object and sees the cause and effect of it. Minute awareness is witnessing, while indifferent perception and cognition that something exists is udasina. Simply looking at a lawn, for example, is cognition or perception. You see the grass. But if you look more closely with the attitude of a witness, then you will notice the weeds in the grass. In the state of sthita prajna, sakshi, or drashta, we know that word, right? You become the witness of the totality. But there is only a superficial awareness in the state of indifference. You see something, but there is no connection of that object or experience with your intellect. There is no analysis. In Samkhya, that is the meaning of Vishada or Udasina, cognition without the relationship of intellect. Therefore, the quality of indifference is classified as tamasic, while the quality of sakshi bhava or witnessing is sattvic. Sattva is the symbol of knowledge. The sattvic state in itself is luminous and has the capacity to illuminate or reveal objects. Therefore, the swabhava or nature of sattva is light. Because sattva in itself is knowledge or wisdom, the cognition of objects, forms, and experiences in the physical dimension happens due to the existence of sattva. Furthermore, the nature of sattva is to give pleasure, happiness, and joy at the mental level. Okay? Understand that right there. Understand that right there. When we're talking about the pleasure that sattva brings, the happiness that sattva brings, we're not just talking about physical pleasure like it feels good to the senses. No, he's talking about at a mental level. And this has an effect on how you live your life. So imagine pleasure, happiness, and joy at the mental level. What that means is nothing physical necessarily caused it. Nothing emotional necessarily caused it. So you're able to tap in and access pleasure, happiness, and joy at the mental level without an external trigger. That's a whole new level. Check it out. Most people don't even realize that they can be happy without an external trigger. When you get something that makes you happy, it makes you feel good, it wasn't the thing, but it's what's going on inside of you as you experience the thing. For example, I got so excited when my roommate brought me that zebra cake, Little Debbie's ice cream, right? I didn't know such a thing existed. Now, can't necessarily eat it yet because of my fast, but I was so excited. I felt full of wonder and joy and anticipation, and I'm just so happy that I got that ice cream waiting on me. But check this out. I could tap into that feeling at any given time. I could tap into that feeling just because. Just because I want to feel that way, I can tap into it. So can you. Living in a sattvic experience has to do with existing at this certain level and also not needing an external thing to cause that feeling within you. You cause it. Lance Benefield says, like Christmas morning as a child. Right. Now, I talked earlier about patterns and your life being a frequency, and your life is your frequency is how frequently you're doing a thing, how frequently you're feeling a certain way, how frequently you're speaking. Imagine if you're able to tap in and give yourself pleasure, happiness, and joy at all times. Imagine just for a moment what life would be like for you if you were able to just make yourself happy just because. Not because of some kind of name brand clothes, or not because of some toy or trinket or device or car or house or none of that. Imagine if you could just be truly happy just because, right? What would life start to look like for you? Because think of how much we do because we're unhappy. Think of all the things that we strive for and reach for and try to do every day because we're unhappy. Now imagine how you would live your life because you could stimulate happiness just because you want to. How would your life be different if you could just be happy? I'm giving you a minute to think about that because that's extremely important for your own well-being and mental health. If you could begin spending more and more time in this state of internal peace and happiness and joy and pleasure, everything that you do would be different. This feeling would seep through your every word and every behavior. It's contagious. You begin to heal yourself, honestly. Because a lot of the stress that we experience in life, a lot of the anxiety that we experience in life comes from our thoughts, right? You start thinking about stuff that stresses you out. It didn't even happen yet. Or it's not even happening to the degree that you're making it out to be. Some stuff we really make it worse than it actually is. That's the power of your mind. You have what you focus on. What you focus on expands. If you're worried and stressed out thinking about what if, maybe this, maybe that, right? You're out here circulating. The Illuminati's gonna get us, y'all. Look at what they're doing this week. We gotta fight back. We gotta get rid. All that stuff. That's not stimulating happiness inside yourself. You're spreading fear. You're spreading anxiety. This ain't no work of the Lord. Society Eject says, yep, people tap into being angry all the time just by thinking about something. Now they walked around being angry all day. Right. Now what if you could do the opposite? Pink Jessica 1111 says, I'm so happy right now. Someone made me coffee and I'm eating them with cookies. Someone told me the cookies must be special because they don't experience as much joy as I'm having. I start jumping happy. Well, there you go. There you go. See, the thing is, when you begin to live in this state of happiness, it doesn't take much. It just takes something very little, like some coffee, like some cookies, like a zebra Debbie cake ice cream or a unicorn pen, right? It don't take a lot to make me happy. So I stay happy. Why would I make it difficult for myself? Why would I make it hard to be happy? Why would I do that? No. I'm going to enjoy what I have. Why not? I spent so many years being depressed. I think it's time that I experience what it's like to be happy about life. You literally choose it. You hear what I'm saying? I hope so. Y'all all right? My brother showed me a Bobby Hemmett lecture where he suddenly stopped and he's like, is anybody out there listening to me? He threw his hands up in the air and everything. Oh, man. You know that's a bad feeling. You dropping all this deep science and the people in the audience are asleep. Oh, man. Is anybody out there listening to me? Understand, man, this information is not for everybody. You can buy a ticket and show up, but even that don't necessarily mean you getting what's being put down. Alchemy Gold, peace and greetings. Yeah, man. I'd hate to be in that spot. But then again, I guess it doesn't matter, you know. Is anybody out there listening to me? I'm going ahead of myself in my Bobby Hemmett voice. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So, sattva. The nature of sattva is to give pleasure, happiness, and joy at the mental level. So one can say that contentment, satisfaction, euphoria, happiness, and bliss are the different effects of sattva. Along with sattva and priti, we have illumination, prakasha. All right, so that's sattva. Let's talk about the other two. Rajas inspires action, dynamism, and movement. Rajas itself is motion, and therefore it also stimulates motion in different forms, experiences, and objects. The positive nature of rajas is stimulation, activation, and motivation, while the negative effect is sorrow, worry, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, grief, and aversion. These are some of the effects of rajas. Tamas represents inaction and ignorance or nescience. It contradicts knowledge and action. It is in opposition to sattva and rajas. Sattva is an aid to attaining knowledge, whereas tamas is a barrier to attaining knowledge. Knowledge here does not mean mere intellectual knowledge, but knowledge derived from interaction, communication, cognition, understanding, and realization. Tamas is also symbolic of nishkriyata, inactivity, passivity, and impotency. So tamas is in opposition to the effects of rajas and sattva, and because of this, we experience lethargy, inactivity, and lack of motivation. So those are the three ways that rajas, tamas, and sattva can manifest themselves in your experience. So now let's talk about the balanced aspect of this whole thing. Trigunatmika. Sattva and tamas are totally inactive by themselves. Only under the influence of rajas does the combination of gunas take place, so that sattva, rajas, and tamas become an experience. There would be no manifestation of either sattva or tamas in the absence of rajas. In every manifest object, these three gunas exist or function together. Let me go back. I should have highlighted that, honestly, because that's important to understand about how these three phases interact with each other. Sattva and tamas are totally inactive by themselves, right? Sattva and tamas are totally inactive by themselves. Only under the influence of rajas does the combination of gunas take place, so that sattva, rajas, and tamas become an experience. There would be no manifestation of either sattva or tamas in the absence of rajas. In every manifest object, these three gunas exist or function together. Therefore, Prakriti, as well as the entire manifest creation, are known as Trigunatmika. However, in the manifest world, these three qualities never occur in equal parts. That's what I was saying about the percentage, right? It says that these three in the manifest world, right? That implies that there is an unmanifest world. You catch the drift? In the manifest world, these three qualities never occur in equal parts. Rather, they go through a process of combination and permutation. In any object or experience, one guna is predominant and the remaining two are secondary. The nature of a form or an experience is determined by the dominant guna. The nature of a form or the nature of an experience is determined by the dominant guna. When sattva is predominant, things are auspicious. When rajas is predominant, inauspicious. And when tamas is predominant, indifferent. So the pure forms of creation are sattvic, the impure forms are rajasic, and the neutral forms are tamasic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. These three concepts are important because they are used openly and liberally in the theory of manifestation. According to Samkhya, Shuddha tattvas are the pure elements representing tattva. Ashuddha tattvas, the impure, mixed or changed elements representing rajas, and the neutral tattvas represent tamas. You know what? This is like the third or sixth time I've referenced the chart on page 45 of Tattva Shuddhi. And I'm pretty sure that chart is broken up into three separate sections. So I'm gonna run to my room real quick and grab that book. Okay, so the name a little bit differently. But I see there we've got Shiva Tattvas, Vidya Tattvas, and Atma Tattvas. They're on the left side. But if you have this book, then you have this chart so you can study it for yourself. Honestly, memorize this. Memorize this chart. That's going to help you out. And remember, Prakriti is here in the microcosm, but Prakriti is also Maya. And Prakriti is also Shakti. So that just shows you that the entire universe that can be experienced is Prakriti, is the feminine aspect. The entire nature that can be experienced, even at the highest level. Now, there's a reflection of that down here in the microcosm where we see that Purusha is over here, yet Prakriti is over here. And that's where all the action and activity is going on. This is becoming a must-have if you're going to be on my channel learning anything. If you don't have this book, do you even magic, bro? Do you even? Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. All three gunas are contrary to each other, but in being contrary, they aid each other. For example, you can liken the three gunas to oil, a cotton wick, and a spark of fire. If you try to light the oil without the wick, it won't burn. However, once the wick soaks up the oil, a spark will ignite the lamp. Oil is liquid, fire is gas, and wick is solid. But when the three come together, the outcome is light. This example shows how three different substances come together to create a common effect, a form of manifestation. Similarly, the coming together of the three gunas becomes the cause of an experience and creates an effect, which is the manifest world. Notice also there we got four elements. We got liquid, which is the oil. We got the fire, which is the gas. And then we've got the solid. And all together they create a new. Kind of like what Franz Barton was teaching as far as water, fire, and air being the three elements, and earth just being what happens as a result of those elements. Swarupa and Virupa Parinama. According to Samkhya, the gunas are continuously in motion or parinama. The gunas constantly intermingle, changing their form. This change of form has two aspects, Swarupa Parinama and Varupa Parinama. Swarupa Parinama means the merging of a guna in a form comprised of the same guna. For example, if sattva converts into sattva, rajas into rajas, and tamas into tamas, that is Swarupa Parinama. Virupa Parinama is the merging of a guna in a form comprised of different gunas. Varupa Paramana occurs in the following three circumstances. Grams 7, peace. King Data Det, peace. So let's check out Varupa Paranama in the three circumstances. When sattva merges into rajas and tamas, when rajas merges into sattva tamas, when tamas merges into sattva or rajas. Varupa Paranama is the type of transformation seen at the time of creation, manifestation, and destruction. Swarupa Paranama only happens when Prakriti is in a state of equilibrium. Then the tattvas or elements merge back into themselves in the state of Samya Avastha, total equilibrium. There is no creation. Samya Avastha is Prakriti's real or basic form, known as Mula, primordial, or Avyakta, unmanifest Prakriti. So at that state, when all that movement and change is absorbed into itself and becomes its seed state, its primordial state, that is Prakriti, that is Mula Prakriti in her highest form, which is completely balanced, right? The life that we experience right now, everything with your five senses, everything in the objective reality, that is manifest Prakriti. That is a lower dimension of Prakriti. But you'll begin to find that there's simultaneously existing unmanifest Prakriti, prototype Prakriti, right? At a certain level, that Akashic Mother Nature exists, but it can only be seen once you start to harmonize and balance your internal mechanism, your mind, your body, your emotions. You get clarity so that you can see clearly. All right, so we talked about Prakriti, right? We talked about the three gunas. Now that we talked about the divine feminine, now let's go to the other side of the coin. Let's talk about the divine masculine. Let's talk about Purusha. Let's talk about the soul. Now remember what he said earlier, the soul does not have a cause, and it is not an effect of anything. It really doesn't have much at all to do with Prakriti. So let's see just how these two relate. Now, again, if you've been here on my channel for quite a while, this is going to clarify some things that you've been seeing and hearing for a long time. So notice here, we got Prakriti, we got Purusha, all right? And what we're actually looking at is Sattvic Prakriti, Sattvic Ahamkara and Tamasic Ahamkara. What are you talking about, Trav? Well, you'll see this on the cover of the book. See that in the cover of the book? Right here where Ahamkara is, we just talked about the three gunas. We talked about Sattva, and that Sattvic Ahamkara, that Sattvic aspect of the labeling system of reality. The Sattvic aspect, which brings pleasure and auspiciousness and happiness and joy and all that, that's what has created manas, the karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas, which are the organs of action and the organs of knowledge, right? So the five gateways that bring you knowledge, right? Your ears, your eyes, your tongue, etc., and the five tools that you use to interact with the world, your grasping, your walking, your speaking, right? Those come from the sattvic aspect of ego. Now, from the tamasic aspect, the indifferent, right? The inert, the heavy, that's where we get panchatanmatra and panchamahabhuta, which are the primordial aspects of the five elements. Basic earth, water, fire, and air, but also all the things that can be seen, all the things that can be tasted, all the things that can be touched, all the things that can be smelled. So over here, you've got the organs that enable you to see. You got the organs that allow you to cognize what is seen. That's coming out of the sattvic. But on the tamasic aspect, you've got the things to be seen, the actual objects to be seen. On the physical dimension, on the etheric dimension, on the astral, on the mental, and on the causal dimension. So they fit together as one of the same. They actually have a common origin, right? Now here's the thing. Just like what the book said, without rajas, there would be no sattva or no tamas. Rajas represents the movement and fluctuation between the two, right? So in order for the nose to smell what can be smelled, that's where the rajasic aspect comes into play, to give an experience of that separation becoming unified again. When you smell, you're becoming unified with it at that moment. But that's all Prakriti. You see that? All this falls up under Prakriti. So what's going on with Purusha? There's no chain of events under Purusha. Let's see what that's all about. Easy as 1, 2, 3. God bless and keep you. Black woman, peace. Young moolah, baby. Okay, so We are not on chapter 2. Oh, chapter 5. Purusha. Purusha means pure consciousness, which is a separate principle from Prakriti. In Samkhya, the differences between Purusha and Prakriti are described as follows. Purusha is sentient, whereas Prakriti is insentient. All right, so everything we just read about Prakriti, she is not sentient. Purusha is the sentient aspect. Purusha is trigunatita, right? Prakriti was trigunatmika. Purusha is trigunatita. What's that mean? Beyond the three gunas, right? Purusha is beyond the three gunas, whereas Prakriti is composed of the three gunas. Purusha is trigunatita, beyond the three gunas, whereas Prakriti is trigunatmika, composed of the three gunas. Purusha is the knower, jnata, whereas Prakriti is that which is known, Neya. So Purusha is the knower, Prakriti is that which is known. Purusha is inactive, Nishkriya, whereas Prakriti is active, in constant motion. Purusha is free from all causes and effects, whereas Prakriti is the primary cause. Purusha is unchangeable, whereas Prakriti is changeable. Purusha is aparinama, without consequences or results, whereas Prakriti is full of results, being the source of all manifestation. So are you starting to see the dichotomy here? Are you starting to see the two sides of this coin? Everything we learned about Prakriti, which is Mother Nature, which is experience, she is nothing but change and expression. Whereas dealing with the soul aspect, the Purusha, that's none of that. The soul, Purusha, is beyond cause and effect. It's beyond Prakriti. It's beyond nature. The soul is the knower, whereas Mother Nature is what is known. So even if you just look in your experience right now, in your experience, you're becoming aware of something, right? Your body might be in a certain room, and you got things in that room, like a couch. It probably smells a certain way. You're probably eating something, so you're tasting something. You're experiencing things to be known. But what aspect of you is knowing this? What aspect of you is aware of this? Right? So even in your own experience, you can start to separate the difference between the gross and dense material plane of Prakriti and the aspect which is the observer of the material plane of Prakriti. Because pure consciousness, Purusha, is the opposite of that which consists of the three gunas, it follows that it is the pure witness. It is solitary. It is neutral, separate from specific experience. And it is not an agent. It is not an agent. That's from the Samkhya Karika, verse 19, which is also at the end of the book. Goodness. Let's keep it going. Purusha and Atma. The terms Purusha and Atma both mean spirit. The Bhagavad Gita has stated very clearly that the Atma cannot be perceived by the senses. It is eternal, permanent, and unchangeable. The same description has been used in Samkhya in relation to Purusha. So Atman and Purusha are different names for the same concept. You ever hear anyone talk about Atma? You ever hear me talk about Purusha? Well, they're one and the same, honestly. Atma and Purusha are different names for the same concept. In the Samkhya Karika, the word Purusha has been used rather than Atma. When the word Purusha is used, it refers to a nature which is self-contained, although it is abstract. The Sanskrit definition of Purusha is Purishati iti purusa. Shete means that which is dormant or inactive. The word puri here means the body, which is the citadel of the senses, mind, and spirit. So the consciousness in creation and beyond creation, that eternal nature which is based on wisdom, knowledge, and self-realization, is known as Purusha. So again, the consciousness in creation and beyond creation, the eternal nature which is based on wisdom, knowledge, and self-realization, right? That's Purusha. The nature of Purusha is Chaitanya, which means self-awareness, that which is intrinsically aware, luminous, and enlightened. That awareness is known as Shuddha Chaitanya, pure awareness. Purusha is beyond pleasure and pain because it is free from raga and dvesha, attraction and repulsion. Check that out. Purusha is beyond pleasure and pain. And I know it's common for us to say things like, oh, my soul felt this, and that makes my soul happy, da 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 da. But that wouldn't be a true description. That wouldn't be a true explanation of what's actually happening there. The ego is being satisfied, but the soul doesn't feel anything. The soul is beyond the feelings. The soul is beyond the ego, beyond the body, beyond the memories. The soul is, we're talking about something deep, not something that you can just describe willy-nilly. Purusha is beyond pleasure and pain. So if there's pleasure and pain, that's not Purusha. You got to dig deeper, right? If it's pleasure, if it has to do with pleasure and pain, that's not the soul. It's deeper than that because it is free from raga and dvesha, which is pleasure and pain, attraction or repulsion. Raga and dvesha is attraction or repulsion. Raga and dvesha are both the result of desire, but Purusha is desireless. There is no desire aspect in Purusha. The laws of cause and effect do not bind Purusha, nor is it connected with any sinful or virtuous act. We're painting a picture here. So the soul, the atma, the Purusha, has nothing to do with desire, right? Because desire is what causes pleasure and pain. Whether you attain your desires or whether you don't attain your desires, that's going to cause pleasure or pain. But see, that's all happening that's the body, and that's the ego and the memories and the mind. That's not the soul. The soul's actually beyond all that. He says here the laws, there's no desire aspect in Purusha. Purusha doesn't desire anything. The soul doesn't desire anything. The soul is beyond that. The laws of cause and effect do not bind Purusha, nor is it connected with any sinful or virtuous act. Look, the soul's not connected with any sinful act. The soul's not connected to any virtuous act. All that stuff belongs to Prakriti. Controversy between Samkhya and Vedanta. Ooh, controversy. An interesting confrontation takes place between Samkhya and Vedanta at this point. In Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya, which is this fellow, in Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya assigns 3 attributes to Atma, right? Sat, which is truth, Chit, which is consciousness, and Ananda, which is bliss. You'll find out about that if you check this book out, Atma Bodha by Shankaracharya, The Knowledge of Self. Good stuff. Good stuff. By the way, you should recognize that name, Satchidananda, which is the guy who translated the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Patanjali. So yeah, in Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya assigns three attributes to Atma, Sat Chit Ananda, which is truth, consciousness, and bliss. And notice Ananda as at the end of these authors' names, right? You've got Swami Satyasang Ananda Saraswati. You got the Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati. You got the Swami Satyananda Saraswati. You've even got Swami Sivananda Saraswati. So that just shows that they're actually a part of a specific lineage, a priesthood, right? Those are titles. They changed their names to titles. Ananda means bliss. In Samkhya, Ananda is associated with Sattva. Samkhya argues that Purusha is trigunatita, beyond the gunas, so bliss cannot be an attribute of Purusha. Only Sat, eternal truth that is pure, fixed, and luminous, and Chit, total consciousness which is devoid of any guna. Ananda cannot be an attribute of Purusha because no experience that stems from the manifestation of a particular guna affects Purusha. If Purusha were to experience bliss, then it would also experience the opposite of bliss and be subject to duality. In order to free the concept of Purusha from the nature of duality, Samkhya has to reject the Vedantic theory of Ananda being part of the nature of spirit. It is interesting to note that in reply, Shankaracharya gives a different definition of Ananda, which accords with his Advaita Vedanta philosophy. He argues that there's a difference between sukha, happiness or bliss, which relates to the sattva guna and the manifest world of the senses, and ananda, which relates to transcendental bliss beyond the gunas. Once upon a time, I remember a book called 200 Proofs that the Earth is Flat. It's a pretty compelling book by Eric Dubay. But we have here 5 proofs. We only need 5. We don't need 200. We got 5 proofs of the existence of Purusha. So here we go. In order to clarify its views and respond to challenges from other schools, Samkhya formulates 5 arguments for the existence of Purusha. The 5 natures of Purusha are Sanghat Parartavat, Trigunadi Viparyayat, Adhisthanat, Bhaktri Bhavat, and Kaivalya. Storm Crystal, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for thinking about me and giving that donation. I hope that this information is definitely received. So let's get to the first one. The first proof of the existence of Purusha, Sanghat Parartavat. The first quality called on to establish the existence of Purusha is Sanghat Parartavat, which refers to objects that are created to provide some benefit to the user. For example, a bed is constructed to enable the person to sleep well. Samkhya argues that similarly, the mind, body, senses, intellect, and ego are used to provide instruction or entertainment for something else, namely Purusha. Let me read that again in case you fell asleep. Samkhya argues that similarly, the mind, body, senses, intellect, and ego are used to provide instruction or entertainment for something else, namely Purusha. So Purusha is the enjoyer of whatever is created in the world. Purusha is the witness. For example, a grandfather sitting in a chair watching his grandchildren play cricket is not participating in the game. He is simply an observer. He knows the rules of cricket and he sees the children making mistakes, but he allows them to do so. In the same way, Purusha is the drashta, the witness, the seer, observing the play of the senses, the mind, the intellect, the body, and the ego. The play is directed by Prakriti, but the actual realization of what is happening out there in the realm of Prakriti is being recognized by Purusha, the drashta. So this argument states that the purpose of Sanghat implies Purusha. Ishvara Krishna also says that Prakriti does not derive any enjoyment. Prakriti is only a sequence of effects. Prakriti is only a sequence of effects. If you're running, you are not observing yourself or your environment, but the person who is watching you run sees where you are. Therefore, it is wrong to say that Prakriti has created this entire manifest, visible dimension and the unmanifest, invisible dimensions for its own cognition and gratification. Prakriti developed and evolves into different forms and different objects, visible and invisible, in order to aid Purusha in recognizing its own nature. That is the meaning of Sanghat Parartatvat. The idea that Purusha is the seer of the play and Prakriti Purusha, The idea that Purusha is the seer of the play of Prakriti. Purusha realizes that Prakriti is the doer, and that whatever Prakriti does is to enable Purusha to know its own nature. We got a book, and then we got the reader of the book. Grams7 says, thank you, brother, I'm at work. Cedric Laurie says, this is amazing. Ain't it, though? Isn't it? Hit that like button if you're just joining, because that's amazing too. For revealing the entire dimension of Prakriti to Purusha and for liberation of Prakriti, there is conjunction or association between Purusha and Prakriti, like the cooperation between the lame and the blind. From this association proceeds creation or manifestation. Purusha and Prakriti are associated like a lame man and a blind man, who are both separate, yet cooperate to their mutual advantage. The function of Purusha is to provide sight, and the function of Prakriti is to provide motion. And from this association proceeds creation or manifestation. From that association proceeds creation or manifestation. So Purusha witnesses the play of Prakriti, and Prakriti performs for the benefit of Purusha. I used to think about certain characters from video games. You'll have to remind me of that Mortal Kombat character. But the closest one I could think of is from the old school Ninja Turtles. We had Krang in that big man-baby robot outfit thing he had. You remember Krang from the old school Ninja Turtle cartoons? But Krang was basically the mind, and he couldn't really do much. So he created that body, and he sits in the belly of that body, and the body does all the work, the heavy lifting. But Krang is the one who controls him. And that's kind of a crude comparison, but the same thing is happening here. We've got two sides of one. You know what? Look at your own mind and your own brain, right? Your mind and your brain is using this meat suit. You got a meat mech. You have a bone mech that is wrapped around with meat armor, right? The same thing. The brain is sitting up inside of this thing, operating and controlling the meat mech. Just like Krang is that brain inside of that man-baby outfit robot thing he had. Separate, they're powerless, right? The robot doesn't activate without a controller, and the mind without a body is just there. But check it out. That that robotic body came out of the mind of Krang. He had to sit down, create it, and plan it out. MC Maestro says Ferrator. Yeah, so that must be the name of that character on Mortal Kombat. That's pretty much like that massive beast, and then the girl rides on top of him. I'm pretty sure there's a Dark Stalkers character that's like that too. Or somebody from the Capcom universe. Alright, so understand that. The function of Purusha is to provide sight, and the function of Prakriti is to provide motion. And from this association proceeds creation, or manifestation. So, Purusha witnesses the play of Prakriti, and Prakriti performs for the benefit of Purusha. To understand this concept, it should be remembered that Prakriti by itself is in Samkhya Avastha, a state of total equilibrium. Where there is no manifestation, it is avyakta. Only in the proximity of Purusha does Prakriti become active. So Prakriti is dormant, right? Prakriti is dormant in her natural state. She's completely harmonized and balanced. But it says here, and also there's no manifestation, right? In her primal state, we look at Bina. Well, check this out. He says here, only in the proximity of Purusha does Prakriti become active. She activates when she's in the proximity of Purusha. Take the example of a magnet, which does not manifest any force unless a piece of iron is placed close by. Then the force of attraction manifests. Prakriti, being insentient, is like the iron, and Purusha, being sentient, is like the magnet. Purusha is self-aware. The nature of consciousness is inherent in Purusha, like the attraction inherent in a magnet. Purusha. Okay, so yeah, we're looking at like the iron and a magnet, right? Prakriti being insentient is like the iron, and Purusha being sentient is like a magnet. Purusha is self-aware. The nature of consciousness is inherent in Purusha, like the attraction inherent in the magnet. Prakriti has all the possibilities of manifestation, but does not become active until it comes into the proximity of Purusha. Therefore, Prakriti cannot manifest without Purusha, nor can Purusha observe in the absence of Prakriti. Purusha cannot be the drashta in the absence of Prakriti, because there would be nothing to see. Prakriti cannot express its inherent nature and qualities without Purusha to witness them. What would be the use of creation? Check this out here. I highlighted this. Without the seer, the avyakta, Mula Prakriti subsists quiescently, and everything remains in balance and harmony, in Samkhya Avastha. But in the presence of Purusha, as an automatic response, Prakriti begins to unfold and manifest just as the iron naturally gravitates towards a magnet. Although the iron and the magnet are independent, both are also interdependent, and their roles are clear. In Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya has said that the nature of atma, the pure consciousness, also known as Brahman or Purusha, the nature of atma is threefold: truth, consciousness, and bliss. Samkhya says that bliss is not a characteristic of Purusha because bliss is a manifestation of sattva, and Purusha is beyond sattva and all the three gunas. If we confirm that Purusha is beyond the that it is pure consciousness, pure existence, pure awareness, pure truth, the unchangeable principle beyond time and space, then bliss cannot be attributed to Purusha. But then, how does the concept apply if Prakriti's role is to manifest for the benefit of Purusha? In Sanskrit, the word bhokta is widely translated as the enjoyer. However, the literal meaning is one who sees, one who experiences what is happening. If there's a plate of appetizing food and you see it, that is one thing. However, if you wish to eat it, then you become involved. So bhakta has two meanings. One, who is conscious, and two, one who is the performer, the actor, and the enjoyer. A reaction takes place within you due to the input of an object or subject that you are with. A reaction takes place within you due to the input of an object or subject that you either like or dislike. However, if you can avoid any involvement with or reaction to the input and simply observe it, even then you can be called a bhakta, but not in the same sense as when you are interacting and reacting with the object. When you are neither involved nor interacting with the object, then you are simply an observer, or drashta. The best example is watching a movie. You may simply watch the movie as a witness. However, if you begin to laugh and cry as the actors enact their drama, then you become involved, reactive, bhakta, because you have identified with the events depicted in the movie. You are feeling what is happening on the screen, interacting with it and reacting to it. So you become part of the act. However, if you simply sit and watch without any personal participation or reaction, then you are also a bhakta, but with another form of perception and cognition. Therefore, the assembly of all the different causes and effects in the world, which are cognized only at the time of creation or manifestation, are for the bhakta. The drashta and the witness. Therefore, the assembly of all the different causes and effects in the world, which are cognized only at the time of creation or manifestation, are for the bhakta, the drashta, and the witness participation of Purusha. This argument is known as Sanghat Pararthatavat. Number 2, Trigunadi Viparyayat. The word triguna means three gunas, and Viparyaya means false knowledge. So first, the definition of triguna should be revised. Prakriti is composed of the three gunas, which are not attributes or qualities, but together constitute Prakriti. Highly highlightable. These three constituents of Prakriti are also substances, dravya. On the other hand, Purusha is atriguna, having no substance of the three gunas. Purusha witnesses the interplay of the three gunas, but knows that this is only interplay, not the original manifestation. This is where Viparyaya or false knowledge arises. Why? Because the combination of the three gunas is in altered state and does not reflect their true nature. Upon seeing the altered state of the three gunas, one may believe in the reality of that particular manifestation or state, but Purusha knows that the altered form of the three gunas is unreal or false, mithya. Let me read that again. Purusha witnesses the interplay of the three gunas, but knows that this is only interplay, not the original manifestation. This is where Viparyaya or false knowledge arises, because the combination of the three gunas is an altered state and does not reflect their true nature. Upon seeing the altered state of the three gunas, one may believe in the reality of that particular manifestation or state, but Purusha knows that the altered form of the three gunas is unreal. Purusha realizes the falsity of the manifest nature, and because of this realization, does not become involved in the interplay of Prakriti. The gunas are never static. In their combinations and permutations, there is always more of one and less of the others. They never manifest in their true nature or full potency. There is always an imbalance, which gives rise to an altered effect. There is always an imbalance, which gives rise to an altered effect. An unbalanced cause creates an unbalanced effect, which is not a true representation. Nehru says this is showing the philosophical argument between monism, oneness of Advaita Vedanta, and early dualism of Samkhya. But regardless, a word of differences. Excuse me. But regardless of word differences, both agree liberation requires union, dhyana, samadhi. Absolutely. Only when Prakriti itself is in Samya Avastha, perfect balance, is the true nature of the gunas represented. However, when the gunas start associating and creating other causes and effects, they leave their balanced nature and take form according to the unbalanced causes and effects. Therefore, Purusha recognizes every experience that arises due to the cause and effect as viparyaya, false knowledge, or perception. For example, in the distance you see a wisp of cloud and think it's smoke, or you see smoke and think it's a cloud. Both ideas are wrong because you are supposing what it could be without knowing the reality. Have you ever known anyone to jump to conclusions without having all the data yet? He says both ideas are wrong because you are supposing what it could be without knowing the reality. Don't be someone who doesn't have all the information necessary to make a decision, yet you're constantly jumping to conclusions. In that case, you're literally making stuff up, right? So, for example, in the distance, you see a wisp of cloud and think that it's smoke, or you could see smoke and think that it's a cloud. Both ideas are wrong because you are supposing what it could be without knowing the reality. However, Purusha knows what is illusion and what is reality. All external manifestation is viparyaya to Purusha because it knows the reality behind the appearance. But one who does not know the reality speculates and creates further ideas and concepts, which become causes for further effects. Purusha does not do that because it is sarvajnata, omniscient. Alright, so thus, the second proof of the existence of Purusha is based on the idea that there must be something beyond the three gunas. That something is defined as Purusha because it is Purusha's nature to recognize the false or illusory knowledge arising from the gunas. which also translates to Trigunadi Viparyayat. We know that all the objects and experiences in the world are comprised of the three gunas in different intensities. All the forms and objects in creation cause sukha, happiness, dukkha, unhappiness, or affliction, gunas. However, there has to be some element which at triguna, not of the three gunas, or beyond the three gunas. Okay? Moby says, love these readings. Yes, ma'am. I get a lot out of doing this. I get a lot out of this. Nuru says, when your reading or studying becomes confusing or frustrating, it's time to forget the cognition, let go of the search for understanding, and sit in quiet stillness until all thoughts end. Be patient. Yeah, I need to remember that often too. Adish Sanat. Number 3. The third concept called on to establish the existence of Purusha is Adish Sanat, which refers to things coming from an original source. Purusha has been known and recognized as the overseer, especially in the form of inspiration. Just as a car will not move until it is started by the driver, in the same way, Prakriti and all the insentient objects of Prakriti do not become active until they receive guidance or force from Purusha. The insentient objects can only become dynamic and active when there is a conscious faculty guiding, directing, or inspiring them to function and act. In the same way, Prakriti and its different permutations have a guide. Purusha is the guide of Prakriti and its allied effects, and can provide them with conscious force or movement. Or, more accurately, Prakriti is not guided by Purusha, rather, it is infused with its force. Just as the attraction in a magnet is inherent in the magnet and infuses the iron, so Prakriti is influenced by the inherent quality of Purusha. Just the presence of Purusha induces Prakriti to act. Purusha does not do anything, rather, it acts like a catalyst in a chemical reaction. The word adhisthana also comes from the root stha, meaning fixed in its own axis. Things are happening around Purusha, so being fixed, it becomes the center. Although it is not the actual performer or actor, still it automatically becomes the center of the movement. Mm, 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 mm. I hope you're catching it. Because of the conjunction with Purusha, the insentient evolute of Prakriti appears to have consciousness. Similarly, the neutral consciousness appears to have agency. Mhm. MC Maestro says, I remember an occult alliance calling themselves an axis. The axis. Okay, so again, because of the conjunction with Purusha, the insentient evolute of Prakriti appears to have consciousness. Similarly, the neutral consciousness appears to have agency, though all agency is solely due to the three constituent gunas. Number 4, Ch3-5. All the manifest objects that are perceived produce feelings of pleasure, aversion, or indifference. But who is it that recognizes these feelings which are derived from the different manifest forms? Who is recognizing these feelings which are derived from the different manifest forms? Prakriti cannot recognize the nature of its creation. Prakriti cannot recognize the nature of its creation because Prakriti itself is insentient. So the cognizer of the feelings which emanate from the interaction with different objects in creation is known as Purusha. Purusha exists as the seer, not only as a passive cognizer, but as an alert cognizer of everything that takes place in the realm of Prakriti. The seer or bhokta of various effects. Hmm. Hmm. The seer or bhokta of the various effects cannot be Prakriti. The concept of bhokta was discussed in relation to Sanghat Parathavat. Nuru says Purusha is what in physics is called the 0 point, the still absolute center of everything. Where is the only place on a magnet that has no force moving? Only the very center. This is Purusha. Sheesh. I've been up since 4 a.m., so it's just now starting to kick in on me. But we're almost reaching the end of this chapter, so I'm going to push forward. Number 5, Kaivalya. The fifth quality called on to establish Purusha is Kaivalya, which means aloneness, freedom, or liberation. This is a dharmic concept because the effects of Prakriti, which are composed of the three gunas and their side effects, attraction, repulsion, and indifference, are considered to be the cause of bondage. Purusha cannot be liberated from the clutches of Prakriti by her clutches. Purusha cannot be liberated from the clutches of Prakriti by continuously enjoying the play of life. Caesar, peace. Hope you're having a good evening. Purusha cannot be liberated from the clutches of Prakriti by continuously enjoying the play of life. However, there comes a time when the consciousness turns away from the experiences of the world. If you watch the same film over and over again, absorbing each and every scene, finally a time will come when you turn away and stop watching it. Also, the inherent nature of Purusha is to observe and at the same time remain aloof from the attraction or bondage of Prakriti. When Purusha turns away from the play of Prakriti, it is no longer the bhakta of pain and pleasure, happiness and sorrow, or indifference. That state in which there is no input of the effects of Prakriti on Purusha is known as Kaivalya. Hmm. When Purusha stops watching the effects of Prakriti, what he observes is Kaivalya, aloneness, which is also called moksha, liberation, or freedom. The concepts of moksha and samadhi presuppose the existence of Purusha. As an analogy, I am the observer sitting quietly while people are writing notes and thinking, oh, this is a very complicated subject, or this is very simple, or this is very interesting. Thoughts are going on in people's minds and creating different expressions on their faces while I am simply observing. When I get tired of watching them, I close my eyes and then I do not see the multiplicity. That is Purusha. The one witness, Purusha, thinks, I have seen her. The other, Prakriti, thinks, I have been seen, and she ceases her activity. Though the association between them, Samyoga, persists, there is no motive for further evolution. So once Purusha actually sees Prakriti, she ceases her activity. The wave collapses into a particle. I have seen her. I have been seen. Purusha is the source from which Prakriti derives the inspiration to become active. Purusha observes the play of Prakriti and also looks away from Prakriti in order to experience aloneness, oneness, or completeness. The concept of oneness is the concept of Purusha. While Purusha observes Prakriti, it sees the duality or multiplicity, and there is no identity of oneness or Kaivalya. However, when Purusha turns away from the multiplicity and duality of Prakriti, it becomes aware of the oneness of Kaivalya. That aloofness or loss of contact between Purusha and Prakriti makes Prakriti return to its balanced state. The entire manifestation of Prakriti is withdrawn when Purusha stops cognizing it. So, in Kaivalya, Purusha identifies with its own nature, not with the nature of Prakriti, while Prakriti also reverts back to its original state. The natural outcome of conscious external involvement is gradual withdrawal after some time. After opening the eyes, there's recognition, then closing the eyes and centering within oneself. This is the daily rhythm of life. After extroversion and waking awareness comes the period of withdrawal into deep sleep awareness. The inbuilt faculty for withdrawal is closing the eyes. After visual stimulation, we want to rest our eyes and we close them. This natural response in life is similar to the response at the level of Purusha. For ages, Purusha has been watching the play of Prakriti and then it closes its eyes. The understanding from which this theory evolved is expressed in Vedanta as the day and night of Brahman. During the day of Brahman, the world existence comes into being, and during the night, everything is withdrawn into Brahman. This is dissolution or laya, merging back into the self, where everything dissolves back into its original source. In Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is the single source. In dualistic Samkhya, Purusha is separate and Prakriti is separate. Prakriti depends upon Purusha's consciousness in order to become active. When Purusha cuts the external consciousness, then Prakriti becomes inactive and returns to Samya Avastha, the unmanifest state. Theory of causation. When Purusha and Prakriti come together, manifestation takes place. Prakriti needs Purusha to provide a direction for its activities. Purusha is like a person who cannot walk, and Prakriti is like a person who cannot see. In order to complete the process of manifestation, Purusha rides on the shoulders of Prakriti. In this way, the conscious faculty of Purusha guides the movement of Prakriti. The only role of Purusha is to guide, and the only role of Prakriti is to manifest. Boom. Prakriti cannot see or cognize, but it has the faculty of movement, whereas Purusha cannot move, but it has the faculty of consciousness. The insentient Prakriti manifests only when Purusha shows the direction. Purusha also says to Prakriti, "That is enough riding on your shoulders for me. Now it is time to be still." The moment Purusha gets down from Prakriti's shoulders, the conscious faculty of knowing, observing, and analyzing ceases. Prakriti then falls back into its original state of Jada, insentience. In this way, Purusha and Prakriti are two separate principles, which enable each other to fulfill their roles in evolution. Only when Purusha and Prakriti come together and the impulse is given to move does Mahat or Buddhi come into existence. There's where Buddhi comes into existence. Buddhi. Let me highlight that. Only when Purusha and Prakriti come together and the impulse is given to move does Mahat or Buddhi come into existence. And of course, you can see this on the cover of this book and also on page 45 of Taught with Shooty. What is it that you'll see? You'll notice that when Purusha and Prakriti come together, the very first evolute is Buddhi. All right. This is good stuff. So if you have any questions, ask them now. If you have any comments that you find interesting, also ask them now. So only when Purusha and Prakriti come together and the impulse is given to move does Mahat or Buddhi come into existence. This Buddhi is not the intellect that we have in our mind, but the supreme intelligence responsible for the subtle, causal movements and manifestations of all the evolutes of Prakriti, which have the potency to become active and dynamic to create. Now, in my experience, we're talking about the higher self, or at least a level of the higher self. We have discussed Karya Karanavada and Satya Karyavada and the theory of causation, which involves Purusha and Prakriti. The next subject is Siddhantavada, the theory of manifestation. All right, so that concludes the 3 chapters on Prakriti, the gunas, and Purusha. I hope that you learned something new about these different things. Purusha is effect and also cause. Prakriti. Prakriti is effect and cause, and the cause of all causes, the mother of form, the mother of everything. Prakriti is Mother Nature. Prakriti is the expression of this reality that we observe with our five senses, and she's also the five senses. Purusha is none of that. Purusha is the soul aspect, consciousness. And within Purusha is no cause and no effect. It is eternal, and it exists beyond the influence of the gunas. See, everything in our life can be categorized as being heavily influenced by one of the gunas, whether it's rajas, sattva, or tamas. But see, this aspect of soul is beyond all that. Purusha is beyond all that. It's beyond time, it's beyond space, it's beyond sattva, rajas, and tamas. It's beyond passion, it's beyond ignorance and stagnation, it's beyond indifference, it's beyond happiness and joy. The soul is on a different level than all those things. Yet it's through the interaction of the soul and matter that we get buddhi, which is basically the subtle aspect of your higher consciousness. All right, so a lot has been said. I hope that you gathered a lot. We'll talk about this more on Sunday. If you didn't get a chance to, I would highly recommend you going back to watch the video that I did 2 Sundays ago, right? So not the last Sunday, but the one before that, where I gave an overview of Samkhya. Go check that out. So it was a live stream that I did not last Sunday, but the Sunday before that. I'd recommend checking that out again if you haven't. But we will continue a little bit later, and we're going to get into the theory of manifestation. I really like this chapter here. And I've shown this page many times before, because what it says right here is, according to the Samkhya system, there are 25 stages in evolution, which are classified into 3 categories, which is as follows. Consciousness, which is beyond the manifest and unmanifest. We're talking about Purusha. Purusha is beyond the manifest. Purusha is beyond the unmanifest, right? So I'm telling you, this goes bigger than anything that we're used to. The soul is not anything that you can sit here and describe by form and shape, right? Because the soul is actually beyond the gunas. It's beyond cause and effect. It's beyond manifest, and it's beyond the unmanifest. So if you can describe it with words that belong to the manifest or even the unmanifest, that's not the soul. The next level of existence is the unmanifest, the prototype dimension, right? This is Prakriti in her harmony, in her balance. Then we've got the manifest dimension, which is when that balance becomes offset. Now the different gunas are constantly swirling and shifting and shaping. But it has, no matter what happens, it doesn't affect the unmanifest level. And also, no matter what happens, none of that affects the consciousness level, because consciousness is beyond manifest and unmanifest. But anyways, we will get into that next time around. All right, it's been fun. It's been a great read. I hope you have a great night. Welcome to all the new people who have joined the stream. I hope that you stick around. And for the veterans of this channel, I truly appreciate you, appreciate your presence, appreciate the time and your energy. And remember, you're healing yourself, right? You take this information and you apply it to your life and you begin healing yourself. Because the aspects of your world that are hidden in ignorance, you're shining the light on those aspects of yourself. And in doing so, you're literally making your life better. You're creating a better life for yourself. So as you heal yourself, you begin to heal the world, right? This is literally how we do it. Not by fighting the Illuminati with weapons and grenades and stuff. No. by healing yourselves one aspect at a time, using this light here, using this light to shine into the subconscious darkness of yourself so that it's no longer darkness and you can transmute it into light. The same way that Goku transmuted some of his most powerful enemies into friends, right? That's what you're doing with your inner demons, with your inner imbalance, with the inner portions of yourself. You're transmuting it all into something to benefit you. Me and my cousin, when we work with our spirits and we work with our servitors and things like that, we went through all the movies that scared us as a childhood, in our childhood. So honestly, I tapped into those things that made me afraid. On my altar, I've got the alien xenomorph, I got the Terminator, I got the Predator, right? I got all these different action figures of these, Hellraiser, all these things that scared me as a child. And I literally took the time to do path working and visualization to meet these things face to face and transform them from things to be afraid of into things that help me, right? Terrified of spiders. Yet I work with spiders purposely because of that fear. I'm transforming that fear into a power, into healing, right? You don't run from your problems. You face them head on and you neutralize them. That's what we're doing here. So when we talk about working with spirits, work with the Goetia and all that stuff, the goal isn't to hurt people or to get money or to get sex, although those things can happen. But the true goal, what you're actually doing is you're shining light within your subconscious, within the unconscious aspects of yourself. Because all these spirits, they represent patterns inside the subconscious mind. And by calling them forth into the light, you're educating them, right? You're assimilating them with yourself. You're literally reclaiming your power. That's how you do it. You're reclaiming your power by facing those things that you're afraid of. You feel me? You see where I'm going with that? So whatever you're afraid of, you need to think about that. You need to think about it. Contemplate it. Why are you afraid of it? What makes you afraid of it? I remember being really young and seeing Alien for the first time, right? The movie. And I was terrified for several nights of aliens, right? I thought that at any given moment they were going to bust through my wall, right? That was scary. I would sit up at night in my bed worried that this creature was going to bust out of the wall. I mean, I'm a little kid back then, right? Also, like movies like Fire in the Sky and some of those UFO abduction movies. And there's another one with Christopher Walken in it that was pretty creepy. And I'm sitting here so afraid of these aliens coming out of nowhere to scoop me up and take me to their ship and look at me funny. All right, I was so afraid of like waking up in the middle of being abducted by an alien. That used to be a big fear for me. But I had to face those fears. I had to face those fears on purpose, right? And I can remember nights where I would stay up for a super long time, listening to every little sound and every little creak, every little flash of light through the window, just paranoid and terrified of aliens. And now I don't have that fear anymore because I faced it directly. I approached it. I said, what if that happens? Even if that happens, so what? Right? Even if that happens, so what? When you face your fears like that, you have a very real opportunity to begin healing yourself and reclaiming your power. Because look, when you're terrified of something, it holds you in its grasp. You are controlled by it. Do you understand that? If I'm afraid of getting abducted by aliens, that's going to affect my behavior, right? Everything that I do, if anything will trigger that fear in any way, I'm going to react in a way that's running away from it. So you want to be sure to address these, control your behavior, and like I said earlier, neutralize them. Neutralize them so that they don't have that automatic effect on you. All right, well, that's about it. I'm gonna turn my camera around and say goodbye. Walk Skywalker, peace. C Skywalker says, I appreciate you, Trav. We sat and read a book and had fun. That's cool. Gotta get this soon. Peace be with thee. Thank you, my friend. Good night, everybody. This was a good read. This is a great book. If you don't have it, you need to get it. I mean it. All right. So that's that. I'm out of here. Have a good night. Be good to yourself. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys.